And after that, we have seen this coming that Sanjay Raut has been called upon by ED tomorrow in Mumbai office.
Right, any word that's come from the Raut family at the moment? And I'd like you to elaborate to us exactly what are the allegations in this case. Is Sanjay Raut's involvement directly in this land deal is what the ED is suspecting? Ritvik, can you hear me? Are we looking at Sanjay Raut's direct involvement in this land scam?
Yes,
Is that what the suspicion is for the Enforcement Directorate?
Yeah, that's the point needed to be investigated by ED, because earlier Sanjay Raut had stated that he has no direct involvement. There was only a transaction of 50 to 55 lakhs on the name of his wife Varsha Raut and wife of Praveen Raut, who is the prime accused in this case. He has been arrested, and the questioning of the CA of Sanjay Praveen Raut, it has revealed that there were transactions which are unaccountable. They couldn't give the source of this transaction, and that was the reason he was called upon. But Sanjay Raut has also stated that they have returned back the money, they have paid it back to the Praveen Raut, and after that they don't have any direct connection with this case, especially with the Patra Chaul and the allegations which are made against Wadhwa. But now we can see that ED is still to question the Raut family, especially Sanjay Raut and Varsha Raut. So for that, Sanjay Raut has been summoned by ED for tomorrow.
Well, this is a big blow undoubtedly to Sanjay Raut. At this point, when we're looking at the Maharashtra political situation dilapidating, in fact, the Mahavikas Aghadi government itself at the brink of collapse, Sanjay Raut, the man who is firefighting this entire crisis right from day one, standing firm with his leader Uddhav Thackeray, now faces ED summons. And not just him, his family members as well. This is a case related to Praveen Raut and Patra Chaul land scam case, where his wife's involvement is also suspected. Some of the properties of Sanjay Raut has already been attached earlier as well by the Enforcement Directorate. But the question remains the timing of the ED summons. Gaurav with me on that as well. Gaurav, you know, one can't help but ask the Enforcement Directorate taking keen interest in Sanjay Raut's irregularities in property transaction just at a time when they're all set to prove their majority on the floor of the House. And let me remind you, there are a couple of ED cases against a few rebel MLAs as well who's with the Shinde camp. So no summons have gone to them as yet.
This investigation has been on for some time, and Varsha Raut has been summoned earlier. She's been spoken to earlier. 8 parcels of land, and plus a flat in Dadar that's been seized earlier. This is alleged to be a 1,034 crore rupee alleged scam. That is the allegation of the Enforcement Directorate. They're investigating a scam. They're seeking certain information. They're seeking certain papers. And Sanjay Raut has reacted to it even earlier. When the story broke, Sanjay Raut had said, if you want, you can shoot me. If you want, you can seize my property. But I'm Balasaheb Thakray's soldier. I will continue to fight and I will continue to prove my innocence. Varsha Raut, his wife, Praveen Raut, a very close aide of his, the Enforcement Directorate wants clarity from them on this alleged scam. But we are getting the first reaction from Priyanka Chaturvedi, the deputy leader of the Shiv Sena in Rajya Sabha, who's actually reacted to our colleague Polimi Saha giving out these details. And Priyanka Chaturvedi has said that the Enforcement Directorate is actually showing its param bhakti to the Narendra Modi government. So, the Enforcement Directorate is in the line of the Shiv Sena fire for the timing of these summons, with Priyanka Chaturvedi saying that it's the param bhakti of the Enforcement Directorate to the Narendra Modi government.
Well, undoubtedly, a reaction was warranted from Priyanka Chaturvedi at this point. But Gaurav, this is exactly what these are the points that the Shiv Sena is making right from the start, that ED, IT, CBI are central agencies used by the BJP, the central government, to try and arm twist if they don't align with the BJP. At this point, Sanjay Raut receiving ED summons raises a lot of questions on the intention of the Enforcement Directorate, who so far call themselves independent, sans any influence from any political party. But clearly, well, bunch of the rebel camp MLAs, a few of the Shiv Sena, the Shinde camp MLAs at this point also have ED cases on them, which they are still fighting. But no summons has come to them so far. Sanjay Raut receives a summons.
भाजपा से परम भक्ति का सबसे बड़ा उदाहरण पेश करती हुई ED department. This is what has been just put out by Priyanka Chaturvedi, the deputy leader of the Shiv Sena in Rajya Sabha. भाजपा भारतीय जनता पार्टी से परम भक्ति का सबसे बड़ा उदाहरण पेश करती हुई ED department. This is Priyanka Chaturvedi in response to India Today's Paulavi Saha breaking the story that Shiv Sena MP Sanjay Raut has been summoned by the Enforcement Directorate tomorrow in the case related to Praveen Raut and the Patra Chaul land scam. Some of his properties have been attached by the ED earlier. Devesh breaking this big story on India Today. So very clearly, it's a series of actions that are being taken in this case. Now, Patra Chaul is a 1,034 crore rupee, and it's a huge land scam, alleged land scam in Maharashtra, to which Sanjay Raut had said earlier, I'm not scared. Seize my property, shoot me, send me to jail. But I am Balasaheb Thakray's Shiv Sainik, and I will fight till the end. 8 parcels of land were attached by the Enforcement Directorate, plus a flat in Dadar. Varsha Raut, Sanjay Raut's wife, has been questioned. Praveen Raut, an aide, is in the line of fire for a PMLA case. It's Prevention of Money Laundering Act case, which is currently being investigated, Nabila.
Right. At this point, Ritvik is, of course, tracking those developments there. Ritvik, we're looking at the Enforcement Directorate issuing summons. This comes at a time to remind our viewers that the rebel camp MLAs, the Shinde Sena MLAs, 2 of them, one is Yamini Yadav and Pratap Sarnaik. Both of them are facing ED summons. In fact, Yamini Yadav is facing an IT case, while Pratap Sarnaik is right now facing an ED case. But no summons has been issued so far to any of the Shinde camp MLAs. At this point, Sanjay Raut is the man who faces ED summons. Ritvik, could you give some clarity a little more on the case that Sanjay Raut is involved in as he faces the ED summons, with Priyanka Chaturvedi also now jumping in to call the Enforcement Directorate and its summons to Sanjay Raut a great bid of devotion to the BJP?
Yes, absolutely. Sanjay Raut, in yesterday's speech in the Shiv Sena Melawa in Dahisar, he categorically stated that ED is behind why all the rebel MLAs are reaching Guwahati. Since last evening, yesterday, we saw Minister Uddhav Thackeray also reaching Guwahati, and he also mentioned why MLA Pratap Sarnaik from Thane and also MLA from Bhaikala, Yamini Yadav, whose husband, who is also standing committee chairman of BMC, was raided by income tax department, was given summons by ED. He categorically said that ED is behind all this, and there's some washing machine in Delhi where
stay with us. I'm going to quickly cut across to Shrikant Shinde, Eknath Shinde's son, speaking to the media.
आणि कशा प्रकारे या सगळ्या गोष्टी घडतायत आणि जेव्हा पायाखालची वाळू सरकते तेव्हा या सगळ्या गोष्टी ज्या आहेत त्या बाहेर येत असतात तोंडातून.
त्यांनी असं म्हटलं आहे की 40 जे आहेत ते रेडे आम्ही त्या ठिकाणी पाठवलेले आहेत आणि कामख्या मंदिरामध्ये जी आहे ती रेड्यांची बळी दिली जाते असा उल्लेख देखील केलाय. हेच बोलतोय की महाराष्ट्राची ही संस्कृती नाही, महाराष्ट्राची जनता हे सगळ्या प्रकारे चांगल्या प्रकारे बघते आणि कशा प्रकारे उत्तर जे आहे ते येणाऱ्या भविष्यामध्ये ती महाराष्ट्राची जनता देईल. जे 40 विधायक आहेत ते मेले आहेत, त्यांचा आत्मा मेलेला आहे, त्यांची फक्त बॉडीज आहे जी इथे येणार आहे. मला जास्त याच्यावरती बोलायचं नाही. आता त्यांच्या तोंडामधून जे काय पडतं त्याला प्रत्येक गोष्टीला मी उत्तरच दिलं पाहिजे आणि मला वाटतं कोणी इकडे जो उभा आहे कोणी इंटरेस्टेड नसेल. शिवसेनेचं पुढचं पाऊल कसं असेल, कारण आज रस्त्यावर उतरून आज कोर्टामध्ये आपली लढाई आहे आणि कोर्टातली लढाई जी आहे ही कोर्टातली लढाई आम्ही चांगल्या प्रकारे जिंकू आणि याच्यानंतर जे आहे हे सगळे जे आमदार त्या ठिकाणी आहेत ते सगळे आमदार ठरवणार आहेत काय करायचं पुढचं पाऊल. एकनाथ शिंदे यांचा गट कोणासोबत जाऊ शकतो? ह्या सगळ्या गोष्टी ज्या आहेत त्या नंतरच्या गोष्टी आहेत, त्या आमदार सगळे आहेत, आता ते एकत्र आहेत. आज ते एकत्र मिळून सगळं एक डिसिजन घेतील आणि पुढे काय होईल ते आपल्याला कळेल. ईडीचं समन्स आलेलं आहे. हो का? मला पण आपल्याकडूनच कळलं. शुभेच्छा त्यांना.
Eknath Shinde's son, Shrikant Shinde, is speaking there. He, of course, takes up for his father at this point as we see a total show of strength in Thane, the bastion of Eknath Shinde, where we see large numbers of his supporters, Shiv Senics, and extensively the constituents of that legislative assembly seat who have come forward to show faith and trust in Eknath Shinde in large numbers. And this comes amid all that backlash from the primary Shiv Sena cadre who are loyal to the Thackeray clan, who've been on a rampage, quite literally. Violence and arson reported from a few parts of Maharashtra, extensively in Mumbai, as they condemn the Eknath Shinde camp for breaking away and pulling off support from the Thackeray family. At this point, we're looking at a counter-protest from the Eknath Shinde supporters itself in Thane, who have come out to stand firmly with Eknath Shinde and camp to say that they will support him to the end. That Eknath Shinde itself is their true leader. Those are the images that we saw, while this the shot that we see on our screens here is one of those supporters of Eknath Shinde burning the effigy of Sanjay Raut. Sanjay Raut, the poster boy of the Thackeray-led Shiv Sena, he has made some really distasteful comments, calling these rebels as dead bodies. At this point, clearly that comment has not gone down well with Eknath Shinde supporters. Now they're taking to the streets protesting, burning effigies of Sanjay Raut. I'm going to quickly cut across to Munish Pandey joining us to give us an understanding on the ED summons right now that Sanjay Raut has attracted. Munish, this is an old case, is what we believe, against Sanjay Raut. It's now come right in the middle. The ED summons has come right in the middle of this Maharashtra political meltdown, just at a time that the Mahavikas Aghadi will have to prove their strength on the floor of the House. It appears just in time is when the ED summons has come in. And also give us some understanding on the rebel camp MLAs. Two of them, we believe, Yamini Jadhav and Pratap Sarnaik, also have ED cases on them, but no summons has come to them as yet. I'm going to try and patch Munish Pandey at this point, but here the visuals that we see here clearly speaks for itself. Eknath Shinde also has the kind of clout that one would imagine, particularly in the Thane area. This is his home bastion. Quite naturally, he's going to have overwhelming support. And of course, 100% backing from the people of his constituency. And that's what we see here, with many of them objecting to the words that Sanjay Raut made when calling the rebel camp MLAs as dead bodies, saying that the moment the dead bodies come back to Mumbai, we will send them to the assembly for post-mortem. These are the words that he said, but you know, Gaurav, at this point, Sanjay Raut making those comments, calling them dead bodies, etc. Time and again, our reporters have also said that this is the true nature of the Shiv Sena. Doesn't seem like that really resonates with the true Shiv Senics on ground, though.
So, this is actually Shiv Sena versus Shiv Sena. Eknath Shinde is as much Shiv Sena as Sanjay Raut is, frankly. But Sanjay Raut has clarified his Zinda Lash comment, saying that Zinda Lash is not a threat to these 40 Shiv Sena MLAs. It's a metaphor. It's a matter of speaking that their conscience is dead. The fact that they are now, despite having got everything from Bala Sahib's Shiv Sena, from Bala Sahib Thackeray, worked 2.5 years under the leadership of Uddhav Thackeray with the Mahavikas Aghadi, they've now suddenly, as the Shiv Sena Uddhav Thackeray camp puts it, changed their BAP to the BJP, and that's the big fight that is happening. But as you very rightly pointed out, a series of comments made by Sanjay Raut have been seen as rather distasteful, where he's saying that Shiv Senics have now taken to the streets. They're waiting for a single order, a single instruction.
Gaurav, quickly cutting across to BJP's first reaction on Sanjay Raut's ED summons. Ram Kadam in conversation with my colleague Pankaj.
महाराष्ट्र की राजनीति में इतना कुछ हो रहा है, लेकिन हैरानी की बात तो यह है कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी इस वक्त चुप्पी साधे हुए है। आखिर भाजपा कैंप में हो क्या रहा है? हमारे साथ इस वक्त भारतीय जनता पार्टी के वरिष्ठ नेता राम कदम जी मौजूद हैं, जो अपनी बातों को बेबाक तरीके से रखने के लिए जाने जाते हैं। सबसे पहले मैं ये जानना चाहता हूं कि शिवसेना के नेता संजय राउत को ईडी का समन चला गया है। ये तो पूरा ऑर्केस्ट्रेटेड लग रहा है, आखिर हो क्या रहा है?
नहीं, जब किसी भी प्रकार के आर्थिक गैर व्यवहार सामने आएंगे और पुख्ता कागजात के साथ सामने आएंगे, क्योंकि कभी भी ईडी की कोई कार्रवाई रातों रात नहीं होती। कई दिनों का अध्ययन उन कागजात का होता है, उसके पश्चात वे कार्रवाई करती है। तो इस कार्रवाई को हम अन्यथा लेने के बजाय जिन्हें भी ईडी का समन्स आता है वे उन सवालों का जवाब दें। सवालों से यदि कोई छुपता है तो उसका स्पष्ट अर्थ यह है कि उनके हाथ कहीं ना कहीं काले हैं।
इसके पीछे राजनीति तो नहीं? इस वक्त महाराष्ट्र का करंट पॉलिटिकल जो क्राइसिस चल रहा है वो तो नहीं?
जब पुख्ता कागजातों के आधार पर ईडी कार्रवाई करे तो उस कार्रवाई के साथ हम उसे सियासत क्यों जोड़ें? क्या देश के लोग क्या चाहते हैं कि कोई बड़ा नेता है करके उस पर कार्रवाई नहीं हो? यह बदला हुआ भारत है और कोई भी जांच एजेंसी के सामने वे कौन से दल का है, कौन से धर्म का है, कौन से पंथ का है, छोटा है, बड़ा है, यह देख करके कार्रवाई हो, या उसके पुख्ता कागजात, उसने किस प्रकार के आर्थिक गैर व्यवहार किए हैं उस पर कार्रवाई हो। तो ये बदले हुए भारत में आदमी नहीं देखा जाएगा, उसका दल नहीं देखा जाएगा, छोटा बड़ा नहीं देखा जाएगा। यदि उसने गलत किया है तो उन बातों का जवाब उसे देना होगा, कानून अपना काम करेगा।
पूरा देश इस वक्त देख रहा है कि किस तरीके से महाराष्ट्र की राजनीति में इस वक्त घमासान मचा हुआ है। भारतीय जनता पार्टी सिंगल लार्जेस्ट पार्टी है, आपकी भी जिम्मेदारी बनती है। हर रोज हम देख रहे हैं किस तरीके से फडणवीस जी के घर में मीटिंग्स हो रही हैं, लेकिन अंदर क्या हो रहा है कुछ पता नहीं लग रहा है। चुप्पी साधे हुए है भाजपा कैंप, क्या हो रहा है?
रूटीन चल रहा है। जो हमारी दल की जो रूटीन बैठकें होती है वह बैठकें चल रही है। ये तो मीडिया को लग रहा है।
नहीं, इधर तो शिंदे कैंप कह रहा है कि सरकार माइनॉरिटी में आ गई है, उन्होंने समर्थन ही नहीं दिया है। ऐसे में आप क्या करेंगे? व्हाट इज योर नेक्स्ट प्लान ऑफ एक्शन?
देखिए, इस विषय में हम कोई टिप्पणी नहीं करेंगे। हमारे प्रांत के अध्यक्ष आदरणीय चंद्रकांत दादा पाटिल कह चुके हैं कि यह पूरी तरह से उनका उस दल का निजी मामला है। इस निजी मामले से वे अपने निपटे, इससे हमारा कोई ना लेना ना कोई देना है।
लेकिन भाजपा पे आरोप लग रहे हैं ना, शिवसेना तो कह रही है ये जो पूरा प्रकरण है इट इज ऑर्केस्ट्रेटेड बाय भारतीय जनता पार्टी। महीनों से आपने इसको स्ट्रेटेजाइज किया, स्टेट में आप बिल्कुल अस्थिरता फैलाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। जितने MLAs हैं उनको बागी बनाया, सूरत ले गए, चार्टर्ड फ्लाइट करी, उन्हें गुवाहाटी ले गए, 50-50 करोड़ देने की बातें भी सामने आ रही हैं। ये कहा जा रहा है जो वापस आ रहे हैं उनको आपने किडनैप, दबाव में रखा है। कुछ तो भाजपा कहना चाहेगी, आरोप गंभीर है।
तो क्या है, ये लोगों का ध्यान भटकाने की कोशिश है। ये खुद की विफलता, खुद के विधायकों की नाराजगी, इस पर वे चिंतन करते, इस पर आत्मचिंतन करके उसका क्या सही रास्ता है इसकी चर्चा करते, इस पर मंथन करते। पर ना इन्हें खुद की खामियों का मंथन करना है, ना उन खामियों को वे स्वीकार करना चाहते हैं। उनके पास तो एक ही रास्ता है, जब भी कुछ भी हो जाए तो उंगली या तो केंद्र सरकार की ओर करे या हमारे नेताओं की ओर करे। तो ये बचपना छोड़ दें, वे आत्मचिंतन करें, और ये उनके दल का अपना निजी मामला है। निजी मामले में वे अपने परिवार में उस मामले को निपटे, हमारा उस मामले से कोई लेना देना नहीं है। ये हमारे शीर्षस्थ नेता इसके पूर्व ही कह चुके हैं।
आपके नेताओं के ऊपर बिल्कुल कमेंट्स किए जा रहे हैं। देवेंद्र फडणवीस जी के लिए कहा है कि इस पूरे मामले से वो बाहर रहें, जो उनकी बची कुची इंटेग्रिटी है उस पर ध्यान दें।
यदि इस प्रकार की टिप्पणी कोई देता है तो यह स्पष्ट करता है कि हमारे विपक्ष के नेता आदरणीय देवेंद्र फडणवीस जी के बारे में उनके मन में एक भय है, और भय का कारण यह है कि आज भी महाराष्ट्र की जनता एक मुख्यमंत्री पद का सही दावेदार जो 2019 में उन्होंने चुना था वो देवेंद्र फडणवीस जी को ही चुना था। ये तो तीन दल जो एक दूसरे के सामने लड़कर झगड़कर चुन के आए थे, और विशेष तौर पे शिवसेना दल, जिस दल के विधायकों ने मोदी जी का फोटो अपने बैनर में दिखा करके, वो तो लोगों ने मोदी जी का चेहरा देख करके उनको चुन के दिया था। यानी मोदी जी का चेहरा देख करके शिवसेना के लोग चुन करके आए, पर सत्ता साझा दूसरे के साथ करे, ऐसे लोगों के साथ करे जो हिंदुत्व के विरोधी है। तो इसलिए आज भी महाराष्ट्र की जनता सही मायने में देवेंद्र जी को ही मुख्यमंत्री के रूप में देखती है। विपक्ष के नेता के तौर पे उनका जो वर्तमान काम है वो सराहने जैसा है। बहुत ही उसकी तारीफ पूरे महाराष्ट्र में हो रही, इस बात को हम नकार नहीं सकते। फिर से मैं पुनः कहूंगा कि हम किसी भी दल के निजी झगड़े के या संघर्ष के बारे में हम कोई टिप्पणी नहीं करना चाहते।
अच्छा, ये बता दीजिए, देवेंद्र फडणवीस और एकनाथ शिंदे की गुजरात में मुलाकात हुई थी क्या?
ये सारी मीडिया की या कुछ लोगों की मनगढ़ंत बातें हैं। जिस दल के साथ उनके ही अपने नेता उन पर नाराज है, तो दल के कुछ बचे कुचे नेताओं की यह मजबूरी है कि उनकी विफलता वो और किसी के सर पे मारे। तो ये उनकी मनगढ़ंत कहानियां हैं, इसमें कोई तथ्य नहीं है।
आखिरी सवाल मेरा यह है, महीनों से भारतीय जनता पार्टी ये कहती आ रही है कि अघाड़ी सरकार ने स्टेट के डेवलपमेंट प्रोजेक्ट्स को स्टॉल कर दिया है, कोई काम ही नहीं हो रहा था। अब तो देखिए, शिंदे कैंप खुद कह रहा है कि सरकार माइनॉरिटी में आ गई है। अब तो आपके सामने मौका है, अब तो पत्ते खोलिए, क्या होने वाला है आगे?
देखिए, क्षमा चाहूंगा, अपनी पहले इसकी पूर्व बात हुई थी कि आप ईडी समन्स और ईडी की कार्रवाई पर हम चर्चा करेंगे। मैं किसी दल के किसी गुट के कैंप के बारे में हम चर्चा नहीं करेंगे, वो उनका निजी मामला है। हाँ, पर इस बात को महाराष्ट्र की जनता और देश की जनता स्वीकार करती है कि जो आदरणीय देवेंद्र फडणवीस जी के कार्यकाल में मोदी जी के आशीर्वाद से उनके नेतृत्व में जो काम डेवलपमेंट के शुरू हुए, विगत 2.5-3 साल में ठप है। चारों ओर क्या दिख रहा है? वसूली दिख रही है। चारों ओर क्या दिख रहा है? लोगों के ट्रांसफर में करोड़ों रुपए लिए जा रहे हैं। यानी तबादलों में तुम करोड़ों रुपया लोगे। 100 करोड़ की वसूली इस देश में देखी। किस प्रकार से दिन दहाड़े जो गवाह है उनका मर्डर किया जाता है, ये इस देश ने देखा। पालघर के साधु हत्याकांड के साधुओं की चीख, उनकी किलकारियां अभी भी ये देश भूला नहीं है। अहंकार को लेकर किस तरह से लोगों को जेल में डाला जाता है, किस तरह लोगों के घर दफ्तर तोड़े जाते हैं, ये अहंकार का रूप ये 3 दलों का देखा है। तो एक ओर देवेंद्र फडणवीस भाजपा का विकास का काम और दूसरी ओर उद्धव ठाकरे जी के नेतृत्व में अहंकार, अपने सत्ता का गैर उपयोग, सेना का फौजी आदमी है जिसका सम्मान सलूट करके करना चाहिए, उसके घर पे भी घुसकर उससे मारापीटी करना, ये जो दुर्व्यवहार एक तरफ देखा है। तो दोनों अगर चित्रों को हम देखें तो निश्चित तौर पे महाराष्ट्र की जनता आज भी चाहती है, अतीत में भी चाहती है और वर्तमान के बाद जो भविष्य आएगा उसमें भी चाहेगी कि भाजपा का ही चित्र वो पसंद करती है। ये तो इन्होंने दगाबाजी करके सत्ता में आए हैं।
सरकार बचेगी?
इस पर हमारी कोई टिप्पणी नहीं।
चलिए, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया सर। कैमरा पर्सन महेश मौर्य के साथ पंकज उपाध्याय, मुंबई, आज।
All right, there you have Ram Kadam there, very clearly stating that it's for the ED to carry out their investigation in a land scam case. These are grave allegations against Sanjay Raut. Pankaj Upadhyay there, bringing the first reaction of the BJP in Maharashtra. Gaurav, Ram Kadam, who's a BJP MLA in Maharashtra, has tried to clarify, saying that he has nothing to do, or the BJP has nothing to do with Enforcement Directorate's investigation into corruption allegations against Sanjay Raut. They're doing their duty. The timing of it is not for him to respond. But apart from that, speaking a bit on the political turmoil in the state of Maharashtra, he very clearly says the Mahavikas Aghadi union was an unholy one. It was never to last, and that's why we're seeing it crumbling at this point. So it's no surprises to them. And at any given point, the BJP is ready to take over if they have the support.
You know, you're absolutely right. The BJP is waiting in the wings, and when the BJP says that they have nothing to do with it, the Mahavikas Aghadi actually says that the BJP is orchestrating and micromanaging every statement, every move that is being taken by the Eknath Shinde Sena in Guwahati, and that is why whether it's the Congress or the NCP or the Shiv Sena, Uddhav Thackeray faction, they are saying that why is it that the rebels have gone from one BJP state to the other. They first went to Gujarat, then they went to Guwahati, because that is where the BJP is in complete control of the situation. But the fact that they're also pointing out is this is something that they're actually trying to hit back on.
All right, we have some big news coming in at this point. Uddhav Thackeray strips rebels of their ministries. This is, at this point, it seems like a futile exercise because we are already seeing a truncated cabinet. The cabinet has already fallen apart with close to 8 of the ministers joining hands with the Shinde camp. At this point, the cabinet itself does not exist. But nonetheless, Uddhav Thackeray, using all his strings, the last left of his power, he has now stripped all those ministers of their ministries. This is Uddhav Thackeray using his powers at the last moment, whatever left whatever remains with him as powers, he's using them to strip those ministers of their ministries, those who belong to the Shinde camp. Paulami Saha joining me on this. Paulami, we're seeing a truncated cabinet. The cabinet of Maharashtra no longer exists with close to 8 of the ministers already joining hands with the Shinde camp. Now Uddhav Thackeray stripping them from their ministries. Does that really add to the woes of the Shinde camp, or they right now careless?
Well, Nabila, it doesn't bother the Eknath Shinde camp because what they are proceeding towards is the formation of a new government in the alliance with the Bharatiya Janata Party. So these are steps that they know will be taken against them. More than the ministries being, of course, taken away from them, they're not obviously quite bothered about that. They're more bothered about being disqualified from the Legislative Assembly. So they have all of their hopes pinned today on the Supreme Court of India, because if they stand disqualified, 16 of these rebel MLAs, that immediately brings down the size of this group, and they will not be able to then, of course, vote in the floor test, which will then be ordered, and hence, the purpose of this entire rebellion, so to say, will fall apart. So that is the only concern that they have right now, that the disqualification shouldn't happen, and that's exactly why they've approached the Supreme Court of India even before their deadline to respond to their summons comes to an end today at 5:30 p.m. because they want the Supreme Court to put a stay on that. So all of this stripping of ministries, giving away of the charges that the 9 ministers who are with Eknath Shinde right now held previously, is something which they anticipated. These are moves that don't bother them as much.
Undoubtedly. And you know what, Kamlesh Sutar also joins us on the phone line for a little understanding. Kamlesh, right now, Uddhav Thackeray is using whatever left of his powers. He's stripping those ministers who are right now with the Shinde camp of their ministries. Does that mean anything at this point of time? We know that this is his last-ditch effort to save whatever he's got, but clearly, since the numbers are stacked against him, doesn't seem like this exercise will really bear fruit.
Nabila, let me first, tell you what action Uddhav Thackeray has taken. This is an important development. Uddhav Thackeray is stripping off. Uddhav Thackeray getting into action mode. He has stripped off the ministries, especially the rebel ministers of all the ministries that are with them. Eknath Shinde, especially Eknath Shinde's charge has been given to someone who is very close to Uddhav Thackeray. It is given to Subhash Desai. And the Chief Minister's office, in a press release that has been issued just a while before, they say that the work, especially given the onset of monsoons, work should not stop. People should not get affected. The administrative work should not be stalled, and hence he has decided, as per the Maharashtra state government rules 6A and 6E, that empowers him to give away the charges of ministers in their absence, or in absence of illness or other reasons where they are not able to conduct their duties. It can be handed over to someone else. All the ministers, important ministers, have been stripped off. All the rebels. Remember, 9 rebels ministers are with Eknath Shinde, and Eknath Shinde's urban development and important portfolio of urban development has been given to Subhash Desai. Gulabrao Patil's water supply ministry has been given to Anil Parab. Dada Bhuse's agriculture ministry has been, and Sandipan Bumre's ministry has been given to Yashwant Rao Gadak. And Uday Samant's Higher and Technical Education Ministry now will be with Aditya Thackeray. Similarly, all the MOS, Minister of State's charges have been taken away. Shambhuraj Desai, who is the Home Minister, MOS Home, his charge has been given to NCP's Sanjay Bansode. That is very important. It has also been given to Vishwajit Kadam, other charges, and Satej Patil. Ajendra Yadravkar, whom we saw very vocal in support of Eknath Shinde, his charges have been given to again Vishwajit Kadam, Prajakta Tanpure, and Satej Patil, Aditi Tatkare of the NCP and Congress here. Abdul Sattar's ministry has been given to Prajakta Tanpure, Satej Patil, and Sunil and Aditi Tatkare again from the NCP. So most of the departments have been given to Congress and NCP of the MOS, and the cabinet ministries have been kept with the Shiv Sena. Clearly, Uddhav Thackeray cracking the whip now. We've seen the Shiv Sena getting into action mode slowly, and now stripping of all the ministers of their ministry, giving their charges to someone else. He's trying to send across a message that the Uddhav Thackeray camp is not taking it lying down. They are taking action and cracking the whip on the rebels.
Right. You know, Kamlesh, stay with us. I'm going to quickly cut across to Mustafa Sheikh also, who's currently in Mumbai reporting on this. Mustafa, while we're looking at the battle that's reached the Supreme Court, the apex court, it seems like Uddhav Thackeray has not lost faith in his own governance. He's acting so swiftly, using all his cards to crack down on these rebel MLAs at this point. He's showing that he still has the strength. He is the Chief Minister even up till date. At this point, he definitely has the powers to strip them of their ministries. He's executing those powers, but not too sure if those powers will remain in the next 24 hours. Shinde camp all set to now come to Mumbai is what we hear. Well, the buzz is that they will come to Mumbai in the next 24 hours. But yeah, give us an understanding on the ministries that have been stripped off and who has those ministries been given to now?
We all know that this entire issue has now gone to the Supreme Court. What Uddhav Thackeray is trying to send out a message to the MLAs which are with the Eknath Shinde camp is that they are losing out, and that's something which he's trying to, as the time stretches, more and more MLAs who are in Guwahati will be at unease because they thought that it will be easy to topple MVA government and then form a government with the BJP, but it doesn't look so. Supreme Court is set to start hearing on the matter. There are multiple issues which Eknath Shinde has highlighted in front of the Supreme Court. So by the time the court understands the matter, it may take 1 or 2 days. So this is something which Uddhav Thackeray is messaging towards the MLAs is that the work is going on as usual. It's people like you who are missing out. So whether this messaging works is something we'll have to wait and see. Now most of the rebel MLAs were saying one thing in common is that they don't want to work with the National Congress Party, and as Kamlesh was telling us that the MOS, Ministry of State charges which have been removed from Sena ministers has been given to NCP ministers. So once again, Uddhav Thackeray showing some favors towards the NCP with the rebel camp may not like and may also come on social media saying again this is what we were saying. So we'll have to wait and see how Uddhav Thackeray playing mind games to get as much as MLA from the Eknath Shinde rebel camp towards him. We'll have to wait and see whether it works or not. Back to you.
Mustafa, stay with us. At this point, what's the sticking point here, or the takeaway from this entire exercise is that many of those ministries have now been given to MLAs of the NCP and the Congress, the two allies of the Shiv Sena, which the Shinde camp has been opposing. Those are the leaders where the ministries now rest with. Gaurav, for more on that, Gaurav, what do you say this exercise that Uddhav Thackeray has now carried out further almost hits right at the heart of the Shinde camp, that they oppose the NCP and the Congress right from the start. Now those ministries that they held have been given to the NCP and the Congress leaders. This is going to hurt the Shinde camp. Undoubtedly it won't remain long, but certainly will hurt them. This will actually, Shiv Senics will wonder why is he doing this. While some ministries are being given to Aditya Thackeray, there are some that are being given to ministers who are, from the Congress and the NCP. And this is the point that the Eknath Shinde Sena has been raising throughout, that the NCP is growing at the cost of Shiv Sena, with this Mahavikas Aghadi, and this will hurt them when they go into the next election. On the other hand, Uddhav Thackeray has argued that the Hindutva vote bank, the Hindutva vote and the agenda, if the BJP takes claim to it, that will hurt the Shiv Sena in the long run. So this is truly, for the Shiv Sena or for Uddhav Thackeray, it's a very difficult situation. But Eknath Shinde Sena is saying that you are making the NCP grow at the cost of Shiv Sena, and that will hurt not just the leaders but also the rank and file of the Shiv Sena, something that Uddhav Thackeray will now have to defend, especially with these ministries now being given to Congress and NCP's MLAs. Wow, all right. So this certainly will hurt the sentiment of the Shinde camp at this point, because their primary grouse is that the NCP and the Congress is building their cadre through this alliance with Shiv Sena, and they have received a setback. At a time like this, Uddhav Thackeray, instead of maybe coaxing and pacifying his own rebel camp, has now stripped them of their ministries, and all the leaders of the NCP and the Congress have now got those ministries. They're going to be handling those portfolios. But how long will they remain ministers? That only time will tell. The Supreme Court is hearing the matter. Possibly in a day or two, we'll have some clarity on who holds the majority and who forms the government. Ritik, also on that for more. Ritik, give us an understanding in a sense on the ministries that has been transferred from the rebel MLAs to some of the MLAs of the NCP and the Congress. Do we have a list and the names?
Yes, sir. The press release issued by CMO, that is Chief Minister's Office, has given a list of portfolios which have been transferred to Congress and NCP existing ministers. The first transfer, if we see in this list, is Eknath Shinde's Urban Development, Public Works, Public Enterprise Department has been transferred to Subhash Desai, who is the Industry Minister and who is the close aide of Uddhav Thackeray. He is the senior most leader in Shiv Sena right now. He is at the Nete Pad, categorically Nete Pad, which is the topmost designation in Shiv Sena after Shiv Sena Paksha Pramukh. So Subhash Desai has taken over Eknath Shinde's department. Secondly, if you can see, Gulab Rao Patil.
With us, Ritvik, I'm going to quickly cut across to Priyanka Chaturvedi from the Shiv Sena, joining us live for a little understanding on the moves made by Uddhav Thackeray, who still remains the Chief Minister. Priyanka, first question. You've commented on Sanjay Raut's ED summons at this point, calling the Enforcement Directorate as a loyal agency of the BJP. What's your take on that? What's your sentiment when you say something like that? Because this is an old case which is now being investigated. The timing of it is not to be questioned.
I say that with total authority. I can also call that not just an extended department of Bharatiya Janata Party, but also an extortionist department that is being used by the Bharatiya Janata Party to try to get everyone to toe their line. We have seen how those MLAs who are right now under the watch of the Guwahati government, Assam government, being bullied into ED silences, and how their investigation is ending or beginning on the basis of who complies with them, who doesn't comply with them. We have seen this happen with all opposition leaders. This continues in Maharashtra, and I think Sanjay Raut has very categorically said that considering the political developments, he's not going to bow down, he's not going to cow down, do what you have to do. And whether it is an old case or a new one, it pretty much I would want to understand. There was an old case against Himanta Kumar Biswa Sarma also. What is happening to that? I would want to know what happened to several ED cases filed against earlier TMC leaders, now BJP leaders. What happened to them?
Well, Priyanka, at this point, you certainly, your party certainly is currently on shaky grounds. You can't deny that. In fact, Uddhav Thackeray executing powers as the Chief Minister itself is a big question. At this point, the Mahavikas Aghadi does not have the numbers. Y'all are stripping many of those rebel MLAs of their ministries. What's the intention behind this? You know very well this won't hold good in the next 2 days, maybe, at max.
Allow me to speak. Allow me to speak.
I was completing a question. You have all the time to speak.
Your question, there are many parts to the same question that you're asking. First, you said our government is on shaky grounds. On what basis do you say that? Has the
on the numbers, the sheer numbers, the sheer numbers.
I'm sorry, you can't interrupt me. Either
you asked me that. You asked me. I am responding to you, ma'am. You asked me. I am responding to you.
You've asked me multiple questions, right?
You asked me on what grounds am I saying that? I'm saying on sheer numbers.
Either you answer your questions, either you answer your own questions, or allow me to do that.
No, ma'am, we understand your sentiment at this point. Please continue.
No, I'm sorry. 1 second. What sentiment are we talking about? So can you please explain what you mean by that?
You asked me a question. I've responded. You're not receiving that well. No, now what am I supposed to say?
You said you understand my sentiment. So can you explain what was that sentiment that you understand?
Are you not able to hear me when I'm saying that it's the sheer numbers? You're not willing to listen to me. I'm responding to your question, but you're opposing it. I'm giving you time to speak. You're still coming back on the previous statement.
You asked me a question, and then I can hear you.
Ma'am, you have all the time to speak. Please continue.
I can only, ma'am, if you stop interrupting me. You asked me a question, then you try to answer my counter question before I could complete answering all your questions. Then you said you understand my sentiment. So I want to understand, what sentiment are you understanding?
Ma'am, if you can continue with it, Gaurav Sawant, who's right here with me, wants to ask you a question as well. Gaurav, please continue.
Priyanka Chaturvedi, the BJP says that the ED is doing its job. The Enforcement Directorate is not working on their orders. Respond, ma'am.
That's one of the biggest jokes I've heard since 2014, and history will tell you since 2014 which are the ED cases which have been activated, which are the ED cases which are being focused upon, and whether it's a coincidence or whether it's deliberate, you can answer that for yourself. The series of ED investigations that are being focused upon by the Enforcement Directorate are those of the opposition leaders. I also put a few names of few leaders who have now joined the BJP, the other side, whose cases have been closed, whose cases have no longer been investigated. So I can easily call ED the extended department of the Bharatiya Janata Party. I can also call them the extortionist department of the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is extorting support for the BJP in non-BJP-led states and creating a chaos in those states.
Ma'am, is there now a fratricidal war within the Shiv Sena? It's Sena versus Sena on the streets of Maharashtra.
No, it is Shiv Sena. Shiv Sena is fighting back those forces who are trying to attempt and dislodge this government. And there is no war as such. A little protest that you saw in Thane, which you all are covering just so much yesterday by the Shinde camp, Eknath Shinde's camp, is not really a war. It is very clearly Shiv Sena's support base asserting itself that the only Shiv Sena that we know and that we support and we acknowledge and we will continue to work under is the Shiv Sena under the leadership of Shri Uddhav Thackeray. It is a Shiv Sena which was founded by Balasaheb Thackeray, not those who, after 2.5 years of staying in the government, holding important portfolios, important positions, claiming to use his name, claiming to use his Hindutva narrative for themselves. Where were these people in the past 2.5 years?
Ma'am, but that's the point that Eknath Shinde and Deepak Kesarkar and others have been making, if I may. They are saying that for 2.5 years, it's the NCP that is growing at the cost of the Shiv Sena. They say that the real Hindutva of Balasaheb Thackeray was put on the back burner because Uddhav Thackeray wants to remain Chief Minister, ma'am.
Mr. Sawant, I will not fall in the agenda pushed forward by that breakaway faction. If you can ask me a question on the basis of my party, my leadership, I'll be happy to answer it.
Okay, but the question that my colleague Nabila was also asking, isn't the Shiv Sena on shaky grounds? 16 MLAs with you. Deepak Kesarkar claims that their faction has 55 with 39 of the Shiv Sena, ma'am.
Actually, Nabila was also saying that she understands my sentiments. I still don't have the answer to what sentiments she seems to have understood. I haven't even conveyed.
Ma'am, at this point, we do understand and we do see the Shiv Sena putting up a brave front. You all don't have the numbers. You all do not have the numbers, and that's precisely what I was getting at. Since you all lack numbers at this point, we understand that there is a struggle to retain fort.
Dear Nabila, you'll have to have patience. You cannot be putting forth your questions all the time without having the patience to hear me out.
Ma'am, I gave you all the time. You asked me to give you. You asked me to allow you to speak. I've given you time to speak. You're still going back.
Gaurav, can I answer your question without any further interruption from the anchor herself?
Go on, ma'am.
Go on, Ms. Chaturvedi. We're listening to you.
Okay, we've unfortunately lost that line with Priyanka Chaturvedi. We'll establish that in just a moment.
At this point, clearly, we see that the Shiv Sena is putting up a brave front. They really do not have the kind of substance at this point, Gaurav, to say that they are able to save the government. So clearly, the anger is inevitable, and it's quite visible at this point. Priyanka Chaturvedi, of course, in a defensive mode, if I can call this, at this point. Without having the numbers, they are certainly showing strength and putting up a brave face. And kudos to them for that.
So numbers will clearly know if there is a floor test, and that is why all eyes remain on the Supreme Court, Nabila, because Shiv Sena says the Uddhav Thackeray faction, they say that a large number of these MLAs who've been taken to Guwahati, they're there against their will, 2, they're there because of ED pressure, 3, the moment they come back to Mumbai, they will once again switch loyalties back to Uddhav Thackeray, and should there be a floor test, Uddhav Thackeray and the Mahavikas Aghadi should be able to sail through. That is their contention. That's the point that, whether it's Priyanka Chaturvedi or Sanjay Raut or a number of Arvind Sawant, a number of other senior Shiv Sena leaders have been making this claim. But we will only know what happens should there be a floor test, Nabila. But that is where it becomes very interesting what transpires. Case number 34, 35 in Supreme Court becomes very interesting in this vacation bench number 16. Why? Because will this case be heard before 5:30 p.m. Today, and the disqualification notice, because that's the deadline given to the 16 Shiv Sena MLAs, that becomes extremely interesting. So all eyes on the Supreme Court.
But whatever permutation and combination you look at here, it doesn't seem like the Shiv Sena at this point, forget about retaining power in the state of Maharashtra, they're not going to be able to retain their party itself. The mothership of the Shiv Sena under Uddhav Thackeray at this point is seeing a near brink of collapse. And at this point, it's undoubtedly so that we see the spokespersons there putting up quite a brave face and a brave front. Kudos to that. But at the end of it, the answer is in the numbers. Gaurav, as we see here, the Maha Vikas Aghadi does not have the support of close to 53 odd MLAs. 51 is the count, 53 is their claim. It's enough now for them to come forward, stake claim on the floor of the House. They could do this any minute. And yet we see a brave face put up by the Shiv Sena. Great for them. But really, does that hold any water, what they're saying at this point? In fact, here is the Shinde plea that has been filed in the Supreme Court. More information coming in on the Shinde camp filing a plea in the Supreme Court at this point. The application that's been filed by Eknath Shinde before the Supreme Court, just moments before the hearing, a fresh application is moved by the Shinde faction before the Supreme Court is what we hear. New application added as part of their petition stating that the lives of the rebel MLAs are currently under serious threat from the Shiv Sena cadre. Application says that the Maha Vikas Aghadi government in Maharashtra has lost control of law and order in the state. And the application further refers to statements made by Sanjay Raut. Undoubtedly so, this was something that was expected. Gaurav, at this point, we're seeing that the Shiv Sena cadre who are loyal to the Thackeray clan have been indulging in violence, protests that have seen arson in many pockets of Maharashtra. And despite Section 144, prohibitory orders that have been imposed in many parts of the state, we're still looking at the Shiv Sena working with impunity. Doesn't seem like the High Command of the Shiv Sena, Uddhav Thackeray, who still retains his position as the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, even if it is short-lived, he still is the Chief Minister. No strict direction going out to the Shiv Senics to stop this violent protest.
So, this is a very, very interesting plea that's been made in the Supreme Court, and this is the third plea that's been made in the Supreme Court for security, because the apprehension is that the situation could take a turn for the worse. Sanjay Raut, Shiv Sena MP and leader, had said that Shiv Senics are already out on the streets. They're waiting for one command, and this is where it will become very, God forbid, it could become very dangerous, because in that exclusive conversation that Sanjay Raut had with India Today, Today's Mosmi Singh, he'd made it very clear, ye aakrosh hai, ye gussa hai Shiv Sainiko ka, and they're known for this anger. If that anger spills out, it becomes very, very dangerous. And, the question that we were putting to Priyanka Chaturvedi was about this fratricidal war, or Sena versus Sena war, because when I interviewed Deepak Kesarkar, he said exactly this, hum bhi Shiv Sainik hai, hum bhi Bala Saheb ki ideology ko follow karte hai, or, their point being perhaps that they can do exactly what the other faction can do. And this is what Eknath Shinde has claimed, that Shiv Sena versus Shiv Sena battle only makes the NCP become even stronger in the times ahead, Nabila. So this is where this fratricidal war is now taking a very curious turn.
But multiple appeals have been made for security. It's not just the Shinde camp now appealing to the Supreme Court through a petition. We also saw Governor Bhagat Singh Koshyari, the first attempt right after he came back after being treated for COVID-19 as he assumed office. That was his first attempt to ensure safety of those rebels. He shot a letter to the DGP and the Commissioner of Police of Maharashtra, where he clearly referred to the rebel MLAs as Shiv Sena MLAs. So that itself was a telltale sign that possibly the governor could be slightly soft on that end to the rebel camp, towards the rebel camp. And that apart, considering there's a failure to act on the Uddhav Thackeray government, the Uddhav Thackeray government has so far not handled law and order situation. That certainly emboldened the governor of Maharashtra to act on their behalf. He's appealed for the DGP and the Commissioner of Police to up the security of the rebel MLAs' family members. They seem to be threatened by the Shiv Senics. And now an additional appeal that's been made by Eknath Shinde to the Supreme Court. That apart, many of those rebel MLAs have also got Y+ category security from the centre. So a perception that's also being built, apart from what we see on ground, is that there's serious threat to the rebel MLAs, which is why they could be avoiding appearing in Mumbai yet. They don't want to come back because they don't feel safe as yet.
They'll come to Mumbai when they're sure of their numbers and they're sure of what the Supreme Court says. They will come. They will have to come to Mumbai. There is no alternative. They will have to stake claim on the floor of the House the moment they want to be seen as an independent faction in the party. So all eyes will remain on the Supreme Court. But as far as the governor's instruction to the DGP and the police commissioner are concerned, the governor is Bhagat Singh Koshyari is a hardcore BJP man. And, whether it's the NCP, the Congress or the BJP or the Shiv Sena, they've constantly been saying that this is a BJP's run operation. That's what is their claim. And it's working with clockwork precision as far as this entire operation is concerned. What happens next will depend on the Supreme Court, and for security, they've made a plea now even to the Supreme Court to ensure security of Shiv Sena MLAs and their families.
And that's precisely what they're trying to project here, Gaurav, that they have the numbers, but they're worried of their safety, which is why they're not coming to Mumbai yet. And multiple appeals there, including a petition to the Supreme Court, establishes that. Nalini joining us for those updates from court. Nalini, what does that petition to the Supreme Court on security for these rebel MLAs really spell out?
Well, Nabila, it's not a fresh petition that's been filed, but it is indeed a fresh application that has been filed in the petitions that were filed late last evening before the Supreme Court. And what Eknath Shinde is saying in this fresh application is that the Maha Vikas Aghadi, the government in Maharashtra, has lost control of the law and order situation. And because of that, there is a threat to the life of the rebel MLAs that are supporting Eknath Shinde at this point and are currently lodged in Guwahati. Their basis for filing this application are the statements that have been made by Sanjay Raut before the media as well as on social media, and they are stating that the statements...
Nalini, stay with us. I'm going to quickly cut across to Maushmi, who's having a conversation with Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Shiv Sena. Let's listen in.
38 विधायक जो है उनके पास है, उसका दावा ठोक रहे हैं।
देखिए, महाराष्ट्र सरकार की तरफ से होम मिनिस्टर ने क्लैरिफाई किया है कि सुरक्षा का प्रबंधन किया गया है, उनके लिए भी उनके परिवार के लिए भी। अब तो इनके पास पूरा सीआरपीएफ का भी सपोर्ट आ चुका है केंद्र सरकार से। एक चिट्ठी गवर्नर साहब से जा चुकी है कि इनके लिए ये बनाए, सुरक्षा का माहौल बनाए। सारा माहौल सुरक्षित है। पता नहीं ये लोग असुरक्षित क्यों महसूस कर रहे हैं। शायद कहीं ना कहीं इनको पता है कि महाराष्ट्र की जनता इनकी कारनामे देख रही है और उनके समर्थन में नहीं है।
अरे पर इस तरह के बयान आ रहे हैं कि सिर्फ मुर्दे आएंगे, उनके शव आएंगे, उनकी आत्मा खो चुकी है।
उन्होंने ये नहीं कहा है। उनके पूरे वक्तव्य को तोड़ मोड़ कर पेश किया गया है और यही है, क्योंकि वो मराठी में बोल रहे थे, कुछ लोगों ने हिंदी में ट्रांसलेट कर दिया। उन्होंने क्लियरली कहा कि जो इस तरीके का काम करता है उनकी क्या अंतरात्मा मर चुकी है। ये तो खुद नीतीश कुमार जी ने भी कहा था, मेरे अंतरात्मा की मैं कॉल ले रहा हूँ।
मैं उसकी बात करूंगी। अभी सुनवाई शुरू हो गई, बड़ी खबर आ रही है, मतलब कि सुनवाई शुरू होना, क्या आपको लगता है अगर कोर्ट ये तय करती है कि फ्लोर टेस्ट होगा तो आप लोग कॉन्फिडेंट हैं कि फ्लोर टेस्ट में, और या फिर डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन को निरस्त कर देती है तो वो बड़ा झटका होगा आप लोग?
नहीं, डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन को निरस्त नहीं किया जा सकता है, क्योंकि वो हमारे पार्टी के सिंबल पे चुनकर आए हैं और पार्टी के खिलाफ अगर बगावत हो रही है तो उनका निरस्त होना जरूरी है और वापस से रीनॉमिनेट होकर आए। हम बस यही कह रहे हैं, नए पक्ष से, नए गठ का जो बात कर रहे हैं उसके इलेक्शन सिंबल पे जीत कर आए।
क्योंकि जो मसला है अजय चौधरी को भी लेके उन्होंने सवाल खड़े किए हैं कि पूरी विधायक दल जो है हमारे साथ है। जी अंजना जी जी वापस आ रहे साथ में खबर बेकरें सुनवाई शुरू।
Before we cut to Maushmi again, here's a big update. The Supreme Court has just begun hearing on the Shinde Sena's plea. There are two petitions that have been filed extensively challenging all the moves made by Uddhav Thackeray and camp. One is of the disqualification proceedings initiated by the Deputy Speaker. On the other is the Deputy Speaker striking down a no-confidence motion against him, and of course also on the Chief Whip appointed by the Uddhav Thackeray camp, Ajay Chaudhary, despite them not having the numbers. Another application in the latest that's been filed is also to up the security of the rebel family members, rebel MLAs family members. At this point, the Supreme Court has just begun hearing the Shinde Sena's pleas. Two of those pleas that will be taken up in court. Here, Gaurav Sawant with me on that. Gaurav, both these pleas that the court will be hearing, in fact, we're looking at top legal eagles who will be facing off. We have Harish Salve for the Shinde camp. On the other hand, Abhishek Manu Singhvi, Congress leader and senior lawyer for the Uddhav camp, who will be facing off on multiple points on the sanctity of the Constitution and under the constitutional provisions, if at all, disqualification process can be initiated by the Deputy Speaker. And remember, all this comes when the Deputy Speaker has issued a deadline of 5:30 p.m. today, this evening, for those MLAs to return, if not face disqualification.
In fact, Neeraj Kishan Kaul is appearing for Eknath Shinde camp right now. So this case is currently underway in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has asked the Shinde Sena, why haven't they approached the High Court first? And this is becoming very, very interesting as they hear the case. Neeraj Kishan Kaul appearing for the petitioners, as in Eknath Shinde camp. He's saying that as of now, ये मामला इतना गंभीर है, this matter is so grave that they have decided to come to Supreme Court immediately, and in case the governor wants and in case the speaker wants, there can be a floor test immediately. Big story we are breaking first here on India Today. You get the latest developments here on India Today. Neeraj Kishan Kaul is appearing for the petitioners Eknath Shinde camp, and when the Supreme Court asked why haven't you approached the High Court, they said that we have come to you straight away because this is extremely serious. Should there be a requirement, let there be a floor test immediately. Also giving precedent of why the actions of the Deputy Speaker are bad in law. Remember, the Deputy Speaker has issued notice for disqualification of 16 MLAs at a time when no confidence plea was moved against the Deputy Speaker by 2 independent MLAs, and past precedent is being cited where Advocate Kaul is saying disqualification proceedings initiated even though resolution to remove Deputy Speaker is pending. The Supreme Court in the Nebam Rebia case had passed a very clear order. The Speaker is trying to subvert the Assembly by disqualifying. Major point being made by the lawyer here, saying that the Speaker is trying to subvert the Assembly by disqualifying these 16 MLAs, Nabila.
Right, a quick word. Let's cut across to Nalini, who has been tracking the court right there. Nalini, as the hearing has just begun, give us an understanding on the Supreme Court asking the Shinde Sena, why didn't they move the High Court first? Have they responded?
Well, yes, Nabila, the hearing is underway before a bench headed by Justice Suryakant and also comprising of Justice J.B. Pardiwala. And as expected, the first question that has been posed by the bench to the lawyers, specifically Senior Advocate Neeraj Kishan Kaul, who is appearing for the Eknath Shinde camp, is the fact that as to why they have not approached the Bombay High Court and why have they come to the Supreme Court directly in an Article 32 petition. What Neeraj Kishan Kaul, as a justification for that, has said is that this is a very serious matter, including the fact that in matters regarding governor's orders or floor tests, they have the right to file an Article 32 petition in accordance with the previous precedents of the Supreme Court, and that is precisely why they've approached the Supreme Court directly. There is also a fresh application that has been filed that is alleging there is a threat to the family members of the MLA and that they should be provided protection because the Mahavikas Aghadi has lost control of the law and order situation before the Supreme Court. It seems like due to some last-minute scramble, Senior Advocate Harish Salve has not been able to join the hearing and most likely will not be making arguments, which is surprising because he was briefed on the matter. But due to some last-minute changes, it seems like Neeraj Kishan Kaul will be the one who will be leading the arguments on behalf of the Shinde camp before the Supreme Court. And what he is stating right now is that he is referring to the earlier matter regarding Arunachal Pradesh and saying that in the Arunachal Pradesh matter, the Supreme Court clearly said that the Speaker could misuse the time period that is mentioned to disqualify inconvenient members. The basic point is that until and unless the Speaker decides on the no confidence motion, which is in challenge now, now before the Supreme Court. Any disqualification proceedings under the 10th schedule should not be held, and if disqualification proceedings are still conducted through the issuance of notice that the Deputy Speaker has done, then that is illegal and should not be allowed. It is on that basis that they are asking for a stay on the disqualification notice, and they are making the arguments for the same right now. Like I told you, Neeraj Kishan Kaul, who is a senior advocate as well as a former additional Solicitor General before the Supreme Court, is currently making arguments before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court bench has just asked him what was the date on which this notice was issued, and Kaul has said that the notice was issued on the 21st of June and the disqualification notice was issued to them on the 25th of June. So first they're talking about the order of the Speaker regarding the no confidence motion that was moved by them, and they're also talking about the disqualification notice that was issued by the Speaker to all of the rebel MLAs, asking them to appear today at 5:30 p.m. Because the deadline is today at 5:30 p.m. Nabila, is why this entire hearing is going to be so crucial, because in the interim either there is going to be a stay on the notice or there is going to be no stay on the notice. So at least in the interim it's going to go in the favor of one of the two sides today itself. Either the rebel MLAs will have to stick with the deadline that has been put in place by the Deputy Speaker of 5:30 p.m. today and either appear before the Speaker themselves or through legal counsel responding on the disqualification notice. But in case the Supreme Court decides to accept the arguments that are being placed by Neeraj Kishan Kaul and put an interim stay on this disqualification notice, then that means that there will be a slight respite to these rebel MLAs. But there are several issues that are up before the Supreme Court in this matter, and each and every one of them is going to be looked at by the bench, and we'll have to wait and see to the end of the hearing as to what the Supreme Court will decide.
All right, you know, at this point, the question of disqualification is still secondary from what we see here, Nalini. The first point here is that a no confidence motion was moved against the Deputy Speaker. So his position as a Deputy Speaker itself stands in question. Do you believe that the Supreme Court will take that up first to see the sanctity of the no confidence motion which the Deputy Speaker struck down, which Shinde camp calls arbitrary?
Absolutely, Nabila, because that is the very basis on which this entire petition has been filed. All of the challenges that they've made regarding the disqualification notice, even regarding the appointment of the legislative party leader Ajay Chaudhary, they're stating that the Speaker has no powers to do this because his appointment itself is in question. So till the time the no confidence motion is not decided, he cannot go ahead and conduct these other proceedings. So the basic crux of challenge before the Supreme Court is the no confidence motion against the Deputy Speaker that was rejected earlier. And what they are stating is that there was a notice that was issued to these MLAs regarding the appointment of the legislative party leader, but 34 of these MLAs had specifically written to the Speaker and asked him not to act on it. But despite that, the Speaker went ahead and conducted the proceedings, which is why they were forced to now approach the Supreme Court seeking judicial intervention in this entire matter and hoping for the Supreme Court to pass some favorable orders so that some semblance is brought into the chaos that is happening in Maharashtra for the past several days. Neeraj Kishan Kaul has also gone ahead and said that why was the Speaker in an undue hurry regarding this entire issue? The first issue, whether his appointment or not is done, is the issue that is valid, and that issue needs to be decided first before the Speaker can move on to either deciding who the legislative party leader should be or whether or not these MLAs deserve to be disqualified. So the crux of their argument is, of course, regarding the no confidence motion. So if the Supreme Court finds even a little bit of merit in that, even if they think that there is a prima facie case that is made out and this entire matter requires more intervention and a deeper look by the Supreme Court, then it is extremely likely that they might in fact stay the disqualification notice that has been issued and ask the rebels to appear before the Deputy Speaker today at 5:30 p.m. That's going to be a massive relief for these rebel MLAs because that is exactly what they are hoping for, which is why they filed a petition on multiple grounds. Because on some of the other ground, they hope to put the point across to the Supreme Court and get some relief from the vacation bench that is hearing the matter on an urgent basis after they've moved the Supreme Court late in the evening last night.
So what happens in an eventuality that these rebel MLAs show up before the Deputy Speaker? If there's a stay in the disqualification process, if those rebel MLAs show up in front of the Deputy Speaker, does that mean a show of strength? What would that really define? Nalini?
Well, when it comes to the disqualification proceedings, Nabila, it's very interesting because regarding the disqualification proceedings, the jurisdiction of the courts to interfere in it is very limited. But because they've made the crux of their matter and the crux of their challenge this no confidence motion, so it remains to be seen what the Supreme Court decides on this. And a very valid question has come in from the Supreme Court, where they've asked Neeraj Kishan, who's appearing for the Shinde faction right now, that the ground that you're taking is that how can a deputy speaker continue with these proceedings, but why have you not approached the deputy speaker with this issue? Why don't you appear before the deputy speaker and request him to not continue with the proceedings while the no confidence motion is not decided in finality? The problem over here, Nabila, that we need to understand is that the post of the deputy speaker is also a constitutional post. So they also have the right to conduct proceedings regarding the legislative assembly in the state. So in that case, the Supreme Court is not bound to interfere in this matter because these are parallel proceedings. And the Supreme Court can come into the picture only after a final decision has been taken by the Speaker regarding the issue of disqualification. So there is very limited jurisdiction that any court of law, not just the Supreme Court, any court of law has in this entire case because it is considering the proceedings that are going on already before the Deputy Speaker. So will the court be willing to step in an interim stage when there's not even a final decision that has been taken is something that remains to be seen, but very valid questions coming in from the bench. Why has the Shinde faction not approached the Bombay High Court? Why have they not approached the Deputy Speaker asking him to not conduct these proceedings? Instead, they have in a very hurried manner approach the Supreme Court, instead asking for a judicial intervention in this matter and for the Supreme Court to take matters into their own hands and pass orders. Even if some orders are passed today, which seems likely because the matter is going to be heard, then it's expected to be on very limited aspect because they obviously can't go into the details of the case in just one day. They're expected to pass a limited order on the interim aspect and likely to conduct a more detailed hearing in the coming days, hopefully on an urgent basis, because that is what is being sought by the Shinde faction here. But it's all up to the Supreme Court to now decide to what level are they even going to intervene in the proceedings that are going on before the Deputy Speaker.
Past instances of such nature, Gaurav with us as well. Gaurav, past instances of such nature, in fact, case in point, Karnataka itself, the first thing that the court had said at that point was for a floor test, directed the entire legislative assembly to appear on the floor of the house and prove their merit. Whoever has the strength, the government goes with it. That's also the common man's approach. Whoever has the strength, stake claim. What's delaying this entire process? At this point, while the court hears the matter, what are you expecting, Gaurav?
So, even before it gets to the floor test, it is the disqualification notice that is currently under challenge. And again, because the Deputy Speaker has issued disqualification notice to 16 MLAs, where the petitioner's lawyer, Neeraj Kishan Kaul, is arguing that this has been done to remove inconvenient members from the assembly. And then the past precedent that you talk about quotes from the Arunachal Pradesh verdict saying that this should not be done. Point 1. Point 2. Principles of natural justice not being followed, Nalini, is another aspect that has been raised, that 14 days time should have been given to respond, which did not happen in this case, with the speaker giving, deputy speaker giving these 16 MLAs time only till Monday 5 p.m. And this is a violation, Neeraj Kishan Kaul argues, of principles of natural justice.
Precisely, Gaurav, and that is also one of the reasons that they've stated in their petition as to why they were forced to move the Supreme Court in this petition in an urgent hearing application, asking for the matter to be taken up on an urgent basis, because they were not given a reasonable amount of time to even reply to this notice that was issued on the 25th by the Deputy Speaker and asking the rebel MLAs to be present before them within a period of 48 hours. What we are given to understand, the latest coming in from the Supreme Court, is that the judges have risen for a 5-minute break. It may be for them to consult between each other as to what needs to be done. It may also be because the Supreme Court bench has not taken a lunch break today. They've been continuously hearing the matters. But 5 minutes break the judges have taken right now. They are likely to assemble in the next 5 to 10 minutes and the hearing will continue. It's on a short pause right now. But elaborate arguments have been put forth by Neeraj Kishan Kaul, who is appearing for the Shinde camp. where he stated that the Speaker first needs to decide on the issue of the no confidence motion, and that itself is in challenge before the Supreme Court. So it makes no sense for him to continue with either the disqualification proceedings or any proceedings regarding the appointment of a legislative party leader. Another very strong point that they are putting forward is the fact that the Mahavikas Aghadi government does not have the numbers and they don't have the majority before the floor of the House. 38 MLAs, if I'm not wrong, they have clearly stated they had written to the Deputy Speaker saying that Ajay Chaudhary should not be appointed as a legislative party leader, but despite that, this appointment was made. So several aspects they have challenged these entire proceedings on, and on the basis of that, Neeraj Kishan Kaul's made these arguments before the Supreme Court. But some very pertinent questions have also come in from the bench's side, where they've asked them as to why they have not approached the Deputy Speaker and asked him to put a hold on the disqualification proceedings because of the no confidence motion. So it is likely, it is a possibility. We of course can't speculate at this point as to what the Supreme Court will do, but it is a minor possibility that the Supreme Court might say go back to the Deputy Speaker, and in case he refuses to hear what you have to say, or in case you feel he doesn't pass a fair order, then you always have the liberty to come back to us. But first make that plea before the Deputy Speaker. Give him a chance to actually conduct the proceedings in the right way before making a challenge before a court of law, because there has to be a proper procedure that has to be followed. There's a hierarchy of courts as well, where they could have approached the Bombay High Court to take care of this entire matter, considering it's a case regarding the Legislative Assembly of the state of Maharashtra. But they've approached the Supreme Court directly in not one but two Article 32 petitions seeking for an urgent hearing, which of course has been granted to them, keeping in mind the seriousness of the issues involved. But as to what extent the Supreme Court will interfere, like I've been stating from the beginning, is up to them to decide, because it might not be to a full extent, considering the fact that the proceedings before the Deputy Speaker have not concluded yet. And on several aspects, the Deputy Speaker's proceedings are still pending, and the rebel MLAs have not even appeared before the Deputy Speaker even once after this entire scenario is played out in the state of Maharashtra.
And that's possibly the only point where Shinde Sena might receive a setback, considering that they're not in the home state of Maharashtra. They're sitting in an alien, a foreign state in Guwahati, Assam, and they're trying to call the shots from there. So it's very likely that the Supreme Court might direct the rebel camp to arrive and show face before the Deputy Speaker. But at this point, a quick word from Gaurav on this. Gaurav, on what grounds did the Deputy Speaker strike down the no confidence motion floated by the rebel camp?
So the plea that is being taken by the Deputy Speaker's office, the information that filtered out is that it came from an unauthorized email ID. And that is why two independent MLAs had moved this no confidence in the Deputy Speaker, alleging or asking whether the Deputy Speaker, and that is the point that is also being made by the rebel camp, by the Eknath Shinde camp in the Supreme Court, is whether the Deputy Speaker, who is supposed to behave in an impartial manner, whether he was acting or working in tandem with the Mahavikas Aghadi government of Uddhav Thackeray. And that is where, because they expect justice from the Deputy Speaker when there was already a vote of a plea of no confidence in him. Why is it that he still issued a notice of disqualification against 16 MLAs, including Eknath Shinde? Now, the Deputy Speaker, we are told, was of the opinion that since these emails came from unauthorized email and not from the authorized email IDs of the two independent MLAs, it wasn't paid heed to. Will this hold ground in the Supreme Court remains to be seen.
Right. You know, that's one technicality over which the Deputy Speaker used his powers and said, well, it's not come from an authorized email ID, therefore I will not accept this no confidence motion. But on the contrary, this baffles me to try and understand why exactly only 16 of those rebel MLAs out of the 39 have received disqualification proceedings against them. Why not all those rebel MLAs? Gaurav, would you have an answer to that? Why selected 16 only have been issued with a disqualification notice? So why not the rest?
Eknath Shinde is the leader of the group, so he gets the notice. Others who've got this notice are all leaders, of this rebellion who are being sent a notice. It's also a message to the others that if the leaders can receive a disqualification notice or may be disqualified, the same threat holds over you. So fall in line and come back to the party fold. That's the thinking we are told within the Shiv Sena. Send out a message to some, the other, take action against some, and the others get the message.
But that's unfair treatment there, even by the Deputy Speaker for that matter. Gaurav, let me cut across to Nalini on that. You have something to say, Nalini? me. My question was why only 16 MLAs get a disqualification notice? Why not all those rebels, 39 of which only 16 are right now in the dock?
Well, Nabila, the disqualification notice is primarily based on the ground that these MLAs had voluntarily left the membership of the party based on their conduct outside the house. So it is important for the government, the Uddhav camp that has moved the deputy speaker, to make sure that they make the best case out possible for disqualification against these MLAs. And it seems like they've chosen the 16 best cases. Additionally, they don't need for all of the MLAs to be disqualified. They only need certain MLAs to be disqualified so that the Eknath Shinde camp can't go ahead and say that they actually have the majority in comparison to the Uddhav camp. So it's not in their interest to go ahead and ask for a disqualification of all of the members. Also, they might be hoping, and this is speculation at this point, but they might be hoping that some of the MLAs against whom disqualification has not been sought might eventually find their way back to the Uddhav camp. So they don't really want to burn the bridges with all of these MLAs. They might be hoping that some of them will return, which is why they've asked for the disqualification of only 16 MLAs. But another important update that we have coming in is that when the questions were raised by the bench to Neeraj Kishan Kaul as to why they had not approached the Bombay High Court or the Deputy Speaker with their plea instead of coming to the Supreme Court directly, what they've stated is that the environment in Bombay is not conducive for them to pursue their legal proceedings and to get any sort of legal action in their favor, because it is being controlled first of all by the Uddhav camp, and second, another allegation that they've raised is that this Uddhav camp is misusing the government machinery available in the state to threaten the rebel MLAs who now have withdrawn their support from them. So they're stating that the environment in Bombay or Maharashtra is not conducive for them to exercise any legal remedies, which is why they've approached the Supreme Court, not only so that there is an unfair view that is taken with regard to this entire matter, but also so that the order comes in from the higher authorities, which makes it binding on the Uddhav camp as well as the law and order machinery in the state of Maharashtra, to ensure that not only these rebels are not harmed, because that seems to be a very genuine concern, which is why they filed even an additional application saying that there is a threat to their life and some action needs to be taken to protect their families, because their families are now also being approached by other Shiv Sena members that are already present in Mumbai. So serious concerns have been raised, and they've given that as a justification for why they've not approached any authority in Maharashtra and have instead knocked the doors of the Supreme Court to hear their plea and likely pass some orders in this aspect. The judges were given to understand is still on the break that they had taken a few minutes back, likely to consult between themselves on exactly how far they should indulge into this matter, and also, yes.
Yeah, the court proceedings we hear has just begun after a break.
Yes. The court proceedings have just resumed, Nabila. They've just resumed, and we have Neeraj Kishan Kaul, who's again further arguing on behalf of the Shinde camp. And what he's stating is, like I told you, he's referring to the Arunachal Pradesh judgment that was stated earlier, where he said that the precedent in that is very clear regarding what the powers of the speaker are and in what cases he can conduct these proceedings. He's also reading out the extracts from the judgment where he's speaking about the disqualification proceedings, and when there is a motion for the removal of a speaker, how no disqualification proceedings can be conducted. This is the basis on which Neeraj Kishan Kaul is basing his arguments. He's also saying that in one of the paras of the judgment, it specifically points out that the speaker cannot entertain any disqualification proceedings when a no confidence motion is already pending against him. Now, although in principle this deputy speaker has already ruled on the no confidence motion, but since that itself is one of the issues that are in challenge before the Supreme Court, we can't say that the issue has yet been decided in finality. So till the time of final decisions not taken on the no confidence motion, no proceedings under the 10th schedule, the anti-defection law, or the disqualification aspect can be conducted by the speaker is what Neeraj Kishan is saying. He is heavily relying on the Arunachal Pradesh judgment to supplement his arguments and make a case for as to why any interference by the deputy speaker regarding the issuance of the disqualification notice to these rebel MLAs is illegal and arbitrary at this stage and should not be allowed, which is why on the basis of which they are asking for this stay to be issued on this notice immediately so that the rebels don't have to meet the 5:30 p.m. deadline that has been put in place by the deputy speaker. Because Nabila, realistically we can expect that if there is no stay and the rebels don't make it to the 5:30 p.m. deadline, then the speaker might decide to actually go ahead and disqualify them. So
yeah,
they
at this point,
that stage where they are disqualified from the assembly.
Yeah. Nalini, at this point, we're also seeing that despite the matter now being in court, this is also the interlocutory period. Despite that, we're seeing Uddhav Thackeray pulling out his powers and using all his might right now to strip those rebel MLAs of their ministries, to try and deter them. So on that front, the Mahavikas Aghadi government seems to be acting despite not having the numbers. Ideally, they are now pushed to a minority with regards to the numbers. They don't have the complete strength in the assembly. But despite that, they're pulling out powers. They are executing their powers at this point with Uddhav Thackeray in the latest, stripping several of those rebels of their ministries, moving them, transferring those portfolios to NCP and the Congress. Is that allowed? Could that be possible? He's still the chief minister, yes, but ideally the government is dysfunctional with them not having the numbers.
Well, Nabila, speaking purely legally, until and unless there is an order to the contrary, Uddhav Thackeray is still very much in power and these decisions are being taken by him in the capacity of a chief minister. There is so far no order that has stated, official order at least, that has stated that Uddhav Thackeray camp does not have the majority before the floor of the house, and all we have so far are the claims and the counterclaims, which is why, Nabila, one of the main questions that the Supreme Court asked is that why haven't these points been raised before the deputy speaker first? Why have you come to us directly? Because if these points were raised before the deputy speaker considering that he's supposed to be an unbiased authority and supposed to listen to all sides and take a fair decision in the matter, might have stopped the proceedings himself. But this point was never raised before him. The rebels never appeared before him. So, which is why the Supreme Court's questioning their locus in coming before the Supreme Court directly. But at the same time, what Uddhav Thackeray camp has to say is something that still remains to be seen. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who's appearing for them, and Devdutt Kamath, who's appearing officially for the Maharashtra government, are yet to make their arguments before the Supreme Court. So it's only a one-sided fight, at least as of now. Only after they make their arguments will we really understand what stance they have in this entire thing. Because although we knew that this matter is eventually going to come to the Supreme Court, what's important to watch out for is who was the approaching party going to be. And because it's the Shinde camp that has filed these petitions, Uddhav Thackeray at this point might be a little bit on the back foot because he is going to be opposing these petitions and he'll have to put his best case forward, which is precisely why some of the top lawyers in the country are part of this hearing right now, because it is extremely crucial what comes out of this hearing, not just for the Shinde camp, but more importantly for Uddhav Thackeray, because this is likely going to be the first official order that is going to be passed by the Supreme Court in this matter. It is likely going to set the tone for how this entire case is going to be. And even though, Nabila, this case might pan out for several months following today, but what happens in the interim is what all these lawyers are going to be fighting for, because they want an interim order in their favor. If the status quo is in their favor, then they can hope for a favorable order at the end of the road when the matter comes to an end. But if the interim order is not going to be in their favor,
fastest updates coming in from court, and you're of course on top of the story as we see that the Shinde camp now in their claims through that petition says the Shinde camp saying that this is a violation of natural justice. This, of course, the Shinde Sena saying violation of natural justice, considering he has the numbers, the two-third majority. In that eventuality, there is no way that the Uddhav Thackeray camp can appoint a chief whip or use the deputy speaker to disqualify members, because they don't have the strength. Even to appoint a chief whip, Ajay Chaudhary, who's been appointed, to appoint a chief whip, one needs the 2/3 majority to sign on a paper or document to approve the chief whip's appointment. But none of that happened. There was no due process that was followed by the Shiv Sena. Ajay Chaudhary was, according to the Shinde Sena, arbitrarily appointed as the chief whip, and the chief whip issued a whip to all those MLAs: if you don't appear for the meeting at Varsha, the Chief Minister's residence, a few days ago, then they would face disqualification. So on all grounds, this is illegal and this is a violation of natural justice. This is exactly what the Shinde Sena says. Gaurav, almost quite a emotional appeal that the Shinde Sena is making, that despite having the 2/3 majority at this point, it doesn't seem like they've received natural justice. They call this illegal. All the process that Uddhav Thackeray has followed, right from using the deputy speaker to initiate disqualification proceedings and appointing a chief whip without having the numbers, all illegal and defies natural justice for the Shinde camp.
So, principles of natural justice not being followed is the contention of the Eknath Shinde Sena with regard to the timing of the disqualification notice or the time given to respond to the disqualification notice. As far as numbers are concerned, you're absolutely right. They've claimed they have the numbers. They claim they have the support of 38 Shiv Sena MLAs. But and this can only be proven on the floor of the House. But principles of natural justice not being followed. One, a notice issued by Deputy Speaker when a vote when two MLAs had already said they had no confidence in the impartiality of the Deputy Speaker. So that's a violation of principles of natural justice, and the timing given to respond only till 5 p.m. today is a violation of principles of natural justice, where the time given should be at least 14 days as per norm. So these are the two aspects that are being raised by the Eknath Shinde Sena in the Supreme Court. It remains to be seen what the Supreme Court does on these petitions, but past precedence is something again that the Shinde Sena is relying on in Supreme Court by saying that principles of natural justice are not being followed by the Deputy Speaker in responding to the queries or the points that have been raised by the Eknath Shinde Sena MLAs, 16 of them who received disqualification notice.
Right, you know, Gaurav, in that matter, if principles of natural justice were to be followed, then the first things first, the Deputy Speaker should have approved the no confidence motion against himself. Is that the first step?
That is the contention, but the point is the moment, since all sides are consulting their best legals and legal minds, their point was the moment there is a vote of no confidence, the moment there is a plea of no confidence against the Deputy Speaker, he cannot take a decision on the disqualification of 16 Shiv Sena MLAs as sought by the Shiv Sena party. Point one. Point two, his recognition of Ajay Chaudhary as leader of the Shiv Sena legislature party. Again, the Eknath Shinde Sena says, how can a minority group in the party decide who the leader would be when the majority group has unanimously, which is 38 MLAs have unanimously decided it would be Eknath Shinde. So these are points where they say that again with the whip of the party, how can the minority group decide what will be the whip? It's only 16 MLAs on one side with Uddhav Thackeray, majority 38 on the other side. So these are points that have been raised. And now it is for the Supreme Court to decide finally, who is with the truth here.
Nalini, if you are with me, in fact, just yesterday, we saw that the Shiv Sena roped in Supreme Court lawyer Devdutt Kamath to give out a formal message to the media. Through the media, in fact, they reached out to the rebel camp, almost warning the rebel camp that this 2/3 majority that you're harping upon right from day one makes no sense and has absolutely no validity until unless you merge with another party. So, in your legal perspective and view here, will the 2/3 majority hold good for the Shinde Sena camp at this point to in fact, carry forward with their appeal to the Supreme Court? What does Devdutt Kamath means when he says that 2/3 majority holds no good until unless you merge with another party?
Well, Nabila, what's interesting, and it's good that you asked me this question because it's important to clarify this. 10 schedule specifically states that this two-third majority that the Shinde camp is claiming comes only into the picture when this camp or this two-third majority splits away from one party and joins or merges with another party. This merger with another party in this case has not happened. They have only split away from the Uddhav Thackeray-led Shiv Sena, which means that there are now two separate factions of the Shiv Sena, and this newly formed faction, the Eknath Shinde faction, has not merged with any other party for the 10th schedule proceedings to be attracted in this case. That's what Devdutt Kamath was speaking about. But what's even more interesting about this is that because both these factions, the Eknath Shinde faction as well as the Uddhav faction, have been seeking legal opinion from the very first day when the rebels actually broke away from the faction and first moved to Surat and then moved to Guwahati, because they've been seeking legal opinion every step of the way, it is extremely possible that even if the Eknath Shinde faction merges with another party, then that merger itself may be in question before a court of law. And the reason why that's interesting is because that will be the first time ever where the Supreme Court will decide on this issue of a two-thirds party merging with another party. This is an issue that has never come before the Supreme Court, and there is no judgment of the Supreme Court on this entire matter. So it'll be the first time that the Supreme Court will be passing an order on this particular legal aspect. So in terms of that, this case can very well go ahead and become an unprecedented case when it comes to either disqualification proceedings or the falling of a government in a particular state. Each and every aspect, because it's being put in challenge before a court of law, as it's been done by the Shinde faction before the Supreme Court, we can expect that even if this merger happens, it will be subject to judicial proceedings and the final order of the Supreme Court.
All right, so when it comes down to a merger or not, Gaurav, at this point, doesn't seem like the Shinde Sena wants to merge formally with the BJP, because that would be suicidal for them. It would go against all that narrative of them being true Shiv Senics, them wanting to work on the ethos and ideology of Bala Saheb Thackeray, etc. So merging with the BJP at this point is out of question for the Shinde Sena. The only contrary is for them to receive a status, or to be, to be now identified as a separate breakaway faction of the Shiv Sena, who they themselves call themselves true Shiv Sena. They say that we are the true Shiv Sena. They've already given a name to this rebel faction, calling it Shiv Sena Bala Saheb. That's the name that's been given. We're seeing enough and more fight on legacy of it. But then this could be possibly the only option for the Shinde Sena at this point, to be recognized as an independent party and then get into an alliance with the BJP and stake claim for the government.
So, when I spoke to Deepak Kesarkar, one of the rebel MLAs at Guwahati, he made it very clear that their aim was to be Shiv Sena Bala Saheb. They're not a separate party. They've sought recognition as a separate entity, a faction of the Shiv Sena. And before that, Eknath Shinde, Deepak Kesarkar and several others, Bharat Gogavle, they've repeatedly been saying that they are the real Shiv Sena. They are the inheritors of Bala Saheb Thakray's Hindutva, his ideology and his legacy. Because their allegation is, or the point that they're making is, that Uddhav Thackeray has compromised on the legacy of Bala Saheb Thackeray by aligning with the NCP and the Congress, unable to take forward the agenda of Hindutva. So this is the fight. Their fight is not with Uddhav Thackeray. Their fight is only about tying up with the Mahavikas Aghadi, being a part of, being with the NCP and the Congress. They want that alliance to be broken. Does this mean disqualification? They have a plan B and a plan C. Polemy has been, reporting relentlessly on their plan B and their plan C. There are some independent MLAs, smaller parties that are recognized, but all of that would take away from their claiming that they are the real Shiv Senics. Yeah,
but as you interestingly mentioned, Gaurav, the Shinde camp has been saying we don't want to formally join the BJP. All we want is we want to pull away from the alliance with the NCP and the Congress, which Uddhav Thackeray, very surprisingly, has not let go of. He's in fact stayed put. He remains the Chief Minister. He's not resigned. He's in fact further emboldened the NCP as well as the Congress by transferring all those ministries that his own MLAs had to the NCP and the Congress. He is basically digging in his heels, saying that I will not break this alliance with the NCP and the Congress at this point. What does this really speak of Uddhav Thackeray's intentions right now?
You know, it's very interesting you point that out, and political analysts have been, talking about this. His father, Balasaheb Thackeray, would have said, I'd rather dissolve the party than go with the Congress. And Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, in their exclusive conversation with India Today's news director Rahul Kanwal at the Business Today Mind Rush Conclave, referred to that statement of Balasaheb Thackeray. Balasaheb Thackeray said, I'd rather dissolve Shiv Sena than go with the Congress. And son Uddhav Thackeray and Chief Minister of Maharashtra talks about his association with Sharad Pawar of the NCP and with Sonia Gandhi and the advice and the fact that those who came together just 2.5 years ago are standing strong together, and those who'd been a part of Shiv Sena from the very beginning are now moving away from him claiming to be the real Shiv Sena. So Uddhav Thackeray's perception is it is the BJP that insulted the legacy of Balasaheb Thackeray and insulted Uddhav Thackeray and insulted the Shiv Sena by claiming to be the bigger power in Maharashtra. So it is more who is the bigger alliance, the biggest flag bearer of the Hindutva ideology in Maharashtra. Uddhav Thackeray feels that it is the BJP that will eat into the Shiv Sena core vote bank. These rebel MLAs feel that the NCP is eating away into the core vote bank of the Shiv Sena by becoming more powerful at the cost of Shiv Sena.
And you know, interestingly, Gaurav, if you see in this gamut of things, the Congress maintains stoic silence, has so far not uttered a word, not made any public comment, only of course saying that we back Uddhav Thackeray entirely, etc. But they've not really made any comment on this, because from what we hear among the grassroots level, the cadres of the Congress, they too are having problems with the NCP. They're not very comfortable with the alliance with the NCP either. Somehow they're directing their campaigns towards the same vote bank. The NCP and the Congress similarly have quite a similar vote bank for that matter in several areas. So the Congress also not very happy with the NCP is what we understand.
You've hit the nail on its head. It's the NCP that is growing at the cost of the Congress and the Shiv Sena is the point that both the Congress and the Eknath Shinde camp have been making in the past 2.5 years. It is the NCP and this is where Sharad Pawar's master strategy seems to be working with the Mahavikas Aghadi. NCP grows, Congress and Shiv Sena suffers is what both Eknath Shinde Sena and the Congress have been maintaining. Uddhav Thackeray, on the other hand, stands very strongly with this, saying that, you know, NCP and Congress, they'll be able to handle in the next election, even though this is an alliance where ideologies do not meet. Their point is, Uddhav Thackeray's point, according to his supporters, is if they go with the BJP stands to gain and Shiv Sena will lose.
Well, our relentless, super fast updates coming in from the Supreme Court. Our experts from the legal perspective right there joining us for more information. Of course, Nalini tracking those developments from court. Our battery of reporters joining us from Guwahati and Maharashtra, giving us the most accurate details as we see the Maharashtra government right now on the brink of collapse. This is certainly not what Uddhav Thackeray had imagined. Came across as a rude shock for him, an overnight shock. When the Eknath Shinde camp literally pulled off a coup. Never did Uddhav Thackeray expect his party to dilapidate to this extent. What a shame, a fall from grace for Uddhav Thackeray at this point, a man who's led the party for close to 50 years. Never expected this kind of rebellion and never smelt it. Under his own nose this happened. Eknath Shinde pulled off the biggest coup from the Shiv Sena at this point, and Uddhav Thackeray didn't have a whiff of it. What does this speak of this man who we call as a seasoned politician? I highly doubt if he really has the acumen.
So, you know, this is something that would really hurt, Uddhav Thackeray, no doubt. but he was under the weather. He was recuperating from serious surgery, and that's the point that he wasn't going and meeting his party rank and file. Is the plea that his supporters have routinely taken. He himself has said that. In fact, he says that he had given the responsibility to Eknath Shinde, and that is where actually he should have read the writing on the wall when the Rajya Sabha results came, and that is where the BJP was able to win more than their strength. And that is where it was loss for Shiv Sena and gain for the Bharatiya Janata Party. Point one. Point two, you're absolutely right, Nabila. He did not expect that 2/3 of his party MLAs will just walk out on him, go to Surat and then go to Guwahati, and he would be left with just 16 MLAs. But he is fighting back, and he is fighting back hard with his back to the wall, with many of his supporters arguing that some of these rebel MLAs in Guwahati are actually his people in the other camp, and there are others who are waiting in the wings. Sanjay Raut wanted to go to Guwahati and bring some of those MLAs back. By the way, there is a team of Shiv Sena leaders who are as of now standing by in Kolkata. The moment they get the green signal, they will go to Guwahati and try and bring these rebels back. But the bigger threat is not just losing MLAs. It would be, Nabila, God forbid for him, if he were to lose the control of his party. Yeah. And that is why he's held a series of meetings with the Shakha Pramukhs and the Zilla Pramukhs, of the party. Because if there's a split in the party, then he'll be left nowhere.
At this point, of course, questions being raised by the Shiv Senics itself, because clearly the Eknath Shinde camp are full of Shiv Sena MLAs, 39 of them. So we can really consider their sentiments as legit at this point. These MLAs have claimed that Bala Sahib, yes, is a founder, but is not the owner of Shiv Sena. So Uddhav Thackeray saying, making statements like you start your own party with your father's name. What does this really mean? This is not a family-owned party.
Yes.
Bala Sahib is a mere founder. It's not a family property. So making statements like that is really going to prove counterproductive. It's the ethos and the principles of Bala Sahib from which the Shinde camp wants to float a separate faction. How do these statements come across? How is it perceived really when Uddhav Thackeray so long called the Shiv Sena as Bala Sahib's Shiv Sena, today is saying his father's Shiv Sena. He's making it sound like this is his family party.
Well, this is the point that Uddhav Thackeray and other Shiv Sena leaders have repeatedly made, that Shiv Sena means Bala Sahib Thackeray and his party. The Thackeray name is very important. But big story. Abhishek Manu Singhvi now speaking in Supreme Court. Abhishek Manu Singhvi now responds to all the charges that are being made, Nabila. And Abhishek Manu Singhvi says it is for the Speaker to decide, and it is the Speaker. Once he takes a decision, it can be brought to court. But Nabila, it is very clear that Abhishek Manu Singhvi says even in the Rabia case, let the Speaker decide. Even if he decides wrongly, the court can only intervene once the final decision has been taken.
Right, and
Nabila.
that's exactly that. Nalini has those updates. Then Nalini, over to you. Abhishek Manu Singhvi arguing.
Yes, Nabila, the arguments on behalf of Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who is appearing for the Uddhav faction as well as the Maharashtra government, have begun. And he is relying on the landmark 1992 judgment of Kyoto Holohan, which is specifically on the issue of judicial interference in the matters of anti-defection law and the 10th schedule. And what he is stating is that the 1992 judgment clearly states that even if a speaker has taken a wrong decision, first you have to wait for him to take a final decision, and only that final decision can be subject to judicial review before a court of law. Till the time a final decision on the disqualification is not taken by the Speaker, there is no jurisdiction of any court in accordance with the 10th schedule to interfere in these matters and pass any orders regarding this entire issue. At the same time, interestingly, what Abhishek Manu Singhvi is also stating is that once the Speaker goes ahead and takes a decision, then that of course can be challenged before a court of law, but first the chance ought to be given to him to take a final decision in this matter. He's also gone ahead and said that there are some extraordinary cases in which coming to the Supreme Court directly is allowed, but this case is not one of them. There is no locus, there is no reasoning as to why the Shinde faction has approached the Supreme Court directly instead of first approaching either the Deputy Speaker or at least the Bombay High Court. And because they've approached the Supreme Court directly, the Supreme Court at this point should not indulge this matter any further. They should wait until the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker in this case, takes a final decision on the disqualification of these MLAs, and then the Supreme Court or any court of law can decide as to whether or not that disqualification was valid. Abhishek Manu Singhvi has also gone ahead and said that there will be certain points that he will be making regarding this entire aspect, bringing forth some facts which have not been brought forth so far, and there are going to be certain arguments that he is going to make which is going to be based on facts that even the Speaker might not be aware of. Abhishek Manu Singhvi has also gone ahead and said that these disqualification proceedings that are going on with the Speaker have still not been concluded. There has been no final order in this aspect, and because they are still pending till the time these proceedings are concluded, there can be no challenge to them before a court of law. Like I told you, he is heavily relying on the landmark 1992 judgment to supplement his points. So we have legal precedents being cited from both sides, from Neeraj Kishan as well as Abhishek Manu Singhvi. But what remains to be seen is which point comes across to the bench as a valid stand in this entire matter. They have granted an urgent hearing of the case, which means that at least prima facie, it seems like there should be something that the Supreme Court should look into. But after hearing detailed arguments to what extent are they going to indulge this matter, we'll only know once the hearing is completed and the orders have been passed.
Well, at this point, from what we see, that the allegations are the Deputy Speaker has been acting out of order, that he's trying desperately to save the government, which is in minority, and hence he could be politically motivated. Those are the allegations made by the Shinde camp. Nalini, at this point, the sanctity of the Deputy Speaker itself is in question. Again, some clarity on both sides of the arguments with that regard.
Well, absolutely, Nabila, and that's something that's not going to go down well with the Supreme Court. And I'll tell you why. It's because the Deputy Speaker's office is also a constitutional post, and there are procedures that are laid down as to how the Deputy Speaker has to conduct these proceedings. So until and unless the procedure has been waived off or there is some blatant illegality, the Supreme Court's not likely to interfere with proceedings that are being conducted by an office that is
Cutting across to Sanjay Raut of the Shiv Sena speaking. Let's hear it.
काही कंपन्यांची नावं घेतली त्या कंपन्यांशी माझा काही संबंध नाही, पण अशा प्रकारची कारवाई या काळामध्ये होईल याची आम्हाला सगळ्यांना खात्री आहे. ज्या प्रकारच्या घडामोडी महाराष्ट्रात सुरू आहेत आणि महाराष्ट्राची इज्जत प्रतिष्ठा शिवसेनेचा बाणा हे वाचवण्यासाठी आणि जे कोणी सोडून गेले त्यांच्याशी लढा देण्यासाठी आमच्यासारख्या माणसाला मैदानात उतरावं लागतं आणि उतरावं लागलं. त्याच्यामुळे महाराष्ट्रद्रोही काही लोक एकत्र येऊन त्यांची वडोदराला जी मीटिंग झाली त्या मीटिंगमध्ये ठरलं की संजय राऊत को टाईट करू. तेव्हाच मला माहिती आली की हे ईडी तुम्हाला समन्स पाठवून बोलवेल. पण माझी तयारी आहे शिवसेनेसाठी आणि महाराष्ट्रासाठी, बाळासाहेब ठाकरेंच्या शिवसेनेसाठी आणि महाराष्ट्रासाठी अशा प्रकारच्या कोणत्याही बनावट कारवाईने माझी मान कापली तरी मी गुवाहाटीला जाणार नाही, मी गुडघे टेकणार नाही, मी तुरुंगात जाणं पसंत करीन. खोट्या या अशा प्रकरणामध्ये काय करायचं ते करू. अजून जर त्याला कुठले माझ्यावरती खोटे खटले दाखल करायचे असतील तरी माझी तयारी आहे. शिवसेनेचा वाघ आहे. बाळासाहेब ठाकरेंबरोबर 30 वर्ष काम केलं. शिवसेनेचा नेता आहे. लढाऊ अशा सामनाचा मी संपादक आहे. काय करणार, माझं मनोधैर्य ते खच्ची करू शकणार नाही. जिथे असेल तिथून मी शिवसेनेसाठी लढत राहील. पाहू काय होत आहे उद्या मी जाऊ शकत नाही. कारण उद्या माझी अलिबागला सभा आहे. उद्या माझं शेड्यूल आहे अलिबागला माझी सभा आहे. उद्या माझी अलिबागला सभा आहे आणि त्या सभेला मला जावं लागेल आणि मला असं वाटतं मी त्या सभेसाठी जाईन.
ईडीकडून वेळ मागितली आहे की मला पुढची वेळ देण्यात यावी या संदर्भात काही तुमचा
नाही ते होईल ना पत्र. कायदेशीर लढाई आहे. काहीपेक्षा मी कायदेशीर लढाईला पेक्षाही साधारण मला काही वेळ लागेल कारण या सगळ्या पक्षाच्या घडामोडी आहेत त्यात मला वेळ द्यावा लागेल आणि काही उपयोजकांना मला अटक करून घेऊन द्यायचं असेल तर मला घेऊन जाऊ शकता. जर दिल्लीतून तसा आदेश असेल भारतीय जनता पक्षाच्या नेत्यांकडे महाराष्ट्रातल्या नेत्यांचा की यांना अटक करा आणि घेऊन जा तर ते मला घेऊन जाऊ शकतात कधी.
सर हिंदी में बता दें सर हिंदी में दोहरा दें कल ईडी ने बुलाया है क्या सूचना मिली ईडी से बातचीत हुई अब तक कुछ आपकी और आपकी प्रतिक्रिया
क्या है काही नाही आहे. हो गए हाँ क्या बोल रहे हैं?
ईडी ने आपको नोटिस दिया हुआ ये सूचना है कल आपको बुलाने की तैयारी
देखो नोटिस मैं सामना कार्यालय में हूँ. ये मेरा घर नहीं. यहाँ नोटिस नहीं आ सकता है. ये तो बाला साहब ठाकरे की वास्तु है. अगर घर में नोटिस आई होगी तो मैं देख लूंगा. जिस तरह की राजनीतिक हलचल मुंबई में चल रही है महाराष्ट्र में देश में चल रही है तो मुझे पूरा अंदेशा था कि मेरे बारे में मुझे रोकने के लिए शिवसेना को रोकने के लिए कुछ लोग इकट्ठा आएंगे महाराष्ट्र के खिलाफ और मुझे और मेरे कोई साथी हुए उनको तकलीफ देंगे. लेकिन चाहे आप मुझे कितनी भी तकलीफ दीजिए मुझे फांसी पर चढ़ाइए मेरी गर्दन काट लीजिए मैं गुवाहाटी में जाने वाला नहीं. क्या मैं गुवाहाटी जाने वाला नहीं हूँ. मैं आपको बताता हूँ मैं बाला साहब ठाकरे जी की जो शिवसेना है उनके साथ खड़ा रहूंगा और उनकी साख बचाने के लिए आखिरी सांस तक मैं लड़ता रहूंगा चाहे मुझे आप गोली मार दो या मुझे जेल डालो. देखिए मेरे पास कल मेरी अलीबाग में सभा है और भी सभाएं मैंने शेड्यूल की है पार्टी की तरफ से. उसके बाद मैं ईडी से टाइम ले लूंगा लेकिन जरूर मैं ईडी के दफ्तर में जाऊंगा और जो कानूनी प्रक्रिया है उनके सामने जाऊंगा. मैं भागने वाला नहीं हूँ.
सर आपका बयान एक तरह से चर्चा में है जिसमें राज को लेकर गुवाहाटी जाने को लेकर मुंबई आने को लेकर असं म्हणणं आहे सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाची सुनावणी सुरू आहे याचिकाकर्त्यांचं असं म्हणणं आहे की आम्ही मुंबईत महाराष्ट्रात येऊ शकत नाही कारण आमच्यावर हल्ले होत आहेत आमच्या घरावर हल्ले होत आहेत आम्हाला धमक्या दिल्या जातात.
त्यांनी मराठी भाषा समजून घेतली पाहिजे. मी काय म्हणालो आहे मी इतकंच म्हणालो की जे गुवाहाटीला आता आहे ते शरीरानं तिकडे आहे त्यांचा आत्मा मेल आहे आणि असे शरीर जेव्हा इथे येतं तेव्हा ते निर्जीव आणि मृत असतं. याचा अर्थ समजून घ्या.
हिंदी में बताइए सर क्या बोला
था?
Statements made by him were not at all objectionable. He said that those rebel MLAs who have gone to Guwahati, their conscience is dead and they are like live corpses. I've never said that the dead bodies will come and we will kill them.
क्या होगा? उनका तो सिर्फ पोस्टमार्टम होता है. लोग उनके विचारों का और उनकी कृति का पोस्टमार्टम करते हैं. ये मैंने कहा ये पॉलिटिकल स्टेटमेंट. मला कोर्टामध्ये काय चाललंय त्याच्याविषयी मी कोणतेही भाष्य करणार नाही. ती न्यायालयीन लढाई आहे ती कायदेशीर लढाई आहे. त्यासाठी आमची लिगल टीम आमचे शिवसेनेचे काही प्रमुख लोक दिल्लीमध्ये उपस्थित आहेत आणि त्याच्यावर
Raut says that I don't want to comment on anything which is going on in the court. The court proceedings are on. Our legal team is right in Delhi. And this is
poster boy of the Shiv Sena, who's now received ED summons. He's said the expected. In fact, put the entire blame on the BJP for trying to arm twist him using the Enforcement Directorate. Here is MP Sanjay Raut responding to the ED summons. In a first reaction, he calls the ED summons as conspiracy to try and pressurize him to join the Guwahati camp. He says, until my death, even if I'm killed, I will not let go of the side of the Thackerays. He has, of course, rested his allegiance with the Thackeray clan, with Uddhav Thackeray. Let me cut across Ritvik Valikar joining us on the phone line for more. Ritvik, he's spoken, Sanjay Raut, in his first reaction on the ED summons, very clearly stating and accusing the BJP of trying to arm twist him and putting pressure using the ED card. No statement that he gave on the corruption allegations against him, though. Give us an elaborate insight on what he said.
Sanjay Raut, as expected, again at his rhetoric best. He says the companies, the names of the companies which are taken in ED case, he has no connection with them. At the same time, he also denies all the charges made by ED. But at the same time, he clarifies that he's not going to go for the summon. He's not going to the office of the ED tomorrow because he has a rally lined up in Alibag, the same place for which he's been summoned. There are land camps, the allegations about land camps made against him and his wife and his family. The properties of Sanjay Raut and his wife were seized by ED earlier this month, and they are situated in Alibag. Now Sanjay Raut says that he's going to Alibag tomorrow to address a rally, a Shiv Sena rally. Also, he says that even if someone tries to kill me, I'm not going to go to Guwahati. He tries to, again, politicize this whole issue, and he is saying that the ED summons has been issued just because he's been speaking against the central government, against the central agencies, specifically ED, and that's the reason the ED has summoned him an issue.
Well, you know, this at this point, it seems like an obvious reaction from Sanjay Raut, because this is exactly what team Uddhav Thackeray has been claiming right from the start, that the mutiny that was led by Eknath Shinde is a mere result of all the pressure that's been put by the ED, the CBI, all thanks to the BJP-led central government. This is the rhetoric that the Uddhav Thackeray camp has maintained right from the start, and it seems like a natural reaction coming in at this point as well, with Sanjay Raut now receiving fresh summons by the Enforcement Directorate in a land scam case. In fact, money laundering allegations to the tune of 1,000 odd crores. Ritvik, are you with us? Would you be able to give us an understanding on the seriousness of the allegations leveled against Sanjay Raut, which the ED is now investigating?
Yes, exactly. The case is about a land scam related to a redevelopment project which was proposed in Goregaon, the suburbs, western suburbs of Mumbai. The land is somewhere around 1,000 crores, costing 1,000 crore, which is more than 600 acres. And the redevelopment project includes 670 tenants. The life of 670 tenants are at the stake because of this project. The project was redeveloped by HDIL, the company, which is in collaboration with another company which was owned by Pravin Raut, who is a very close aide of Sanjay Raut, that is to be believed, and what ED has accused him of. And there are transactions found between Pravin Raut's wife and Sanjay Raut's wife, Varsha Raut. So that's the point where ED wants to investigate and question Sanjay Raut and his wife. And that is the only reason they have summoned him an issue.
All right, these are huge allegations, undoubtedly. Now, the timing of it, of course, is now the bone of contention. The ED summons right in the thick of this Maharashtra political crisis really raises questions. But on the contrary, Sanjay Raut indeed has to answer a lot of questions on these corruption allegations of money laundering against him. But this is an ED case that has been persistent. It's been a couple of years that he's facing the Enforcement Directorate's investigation. But now a fresh summons issued against Sanjay Raut at this point, even as he gets set to carry out rallies and campaigns tomorrow as well. It seems like his plan certainly is hindered. Amid this raging political turmoil unfolding by the minute in Maharashtra, Shiv Sena MP Sanjay Raut has now been summoned by the Enforcement Directorate in connection with the Patra Chaul land scam case. The summons is for tomorrow. He's got to appear on Tuesday before the ED office. Some of his properties have been attached by the Enforcement Directorate earlier as well. Reacting to the summons, Sena MP Sanjay Raut has said that the Bala Sahib's Shiv Seniks were fighting a big battle and that there is a conspiracy to stop him. He's further gone on to declare that even if they arrest him, he won't take the Guwahati route. He's been claiming that the BJP is trying to pressurize him. He's got many offers from the BJP in the past to join them. And since he's stayed true to the Bal Thackeray ethics and with the Shiv Sena, that's why the BJP is trying to use the Enforcement Directorate against him. These are his claims. In fact, the Shiv Sena MP Priyanka Chaturvedi, on the other hand, has said that the ED was just showing its true devotion towards the BJP. Earlier, the Enforcement Directorate had attached properties worth 9 crore rupees related to Sanjay Raut's aide, Praveen Raut, and assets worth around 2 crores belonging to Sanjay Raut's wife, Varsha, in a whopping 1,034 crore Patra Chaul land scam case. ED officials probing this Patra Chaul land scam case has also found in February that Praveen Raut, who is Sanjay Raut's close aide, had paid off 55 lakh rupees from the proceeds of that crime through his wife's account to Varsha. ED has also said that hotel accommodation, tickets were all booked for domestic as well as international travel of Sanjay Raut and people associated with him. So some serious allegations leveled against Sanjay Raut, whether he has direct involvement in the scam or not, of course, for the ED to find out. But a summons has been issued against him for tomorrow, just a day when Sanjay Raut intended to carry out rallies in different parts of Maharashtra to try and build confidence amongst the grassroots level cadre of the Shiv Sena. It seems like this has come as a setback.
इस कार्रवाई को हम अन्यथा लेने के बजाय जिन्हें भी ईडी का समन्स आता है वे उन सवालों का जवाब दे। सवालों से यदि कोई छुपता है तो उसका स्पष्ट अर्थ यह है कि उनके हाथ कहीं ना कहीं काले हैं। जब पुख्ता कागजातों के आधार पर ईडी कार्रवाई करे तो उस कार्रवाई के साथ हम उसे सियासत क्यों जोड़ें? क्या देश के लोग क्या चाहते हैं कि कोई बड़ा नेता है करके उस पर कार्रवाई नहीं हो?
ईडीचं समन्स आलेलं आहे.
हो का? मला पण आपल्याकडूनच कळलं. शुभेच्छा त्यांना.
ईडीचं समन्स आलेलं आहे.
हो का? मला पण आपल्याकडूनच कळलं. शुभेच्छा त्यांना.
All right, they're reacting, of course, to ED summons to Sanjay Raut. Now, of course, what do you have to say? Let me cut across to our reporter joining us at this point. We're looking at Eknath Shinde, who just spoke. But before that, I'm going to cut across to my colleague Gaurav Sawant, who was in conversation with Sena MP Priyanka Chaturvedi on Sanjay Raut's ED summons. Let's listen in.
Priyanka Chaturvedi, the BJP says that the ED is doing its job. The Enforcement Directorate is not working on their orders. Respond, ma'am.
That's one of the biggest jokes I've heard since 2014, and history will tell you since 2014 which are the ED cases which have been activated, which are the ED cases which are being focused upon, and whether it's a coincidence or whether it's deliberate, you can answer that for yourself. The series of ED investigations that are being focused upon by the Enforcement Directorate are those of the opposition leaders. I also put a few names of few leaders who have now joined the BJP, the other side, whose cases have been closed, whose cases have no longer been investigated. So I can easily call ED the extended department of the Bharatiya Janata Party. I can also call them the extortionist department of the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is extorting support for the BJP in non-BJP-led states and creating a chaos in those states.
Ma'am, is there now a fratricidal war within the Shiv Sena? It's Sena versus Sena on the streets of Maharashtra.
No, it is Shiv Sena. Shiv Sena is fighting back those forces who are trying to attempt and dislodge this government. And there is no war as such. A little protest that you saw in Thane, which you all are covering just so much yesterday by the Shinde camp, Eknath Shinde's camp, is not really a war. It is very clearly Shiv Sena's support base asserting itself that the only Shiv Sena that we know and that we support and we acknowledge and we will continue to work under is the Shiv Sena under the leadership of Shri Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray. It is a Shiv Sena which was founded by Balasaheb Thackeray, not those who, after 2.5 years of staying in the government, holding important portfolios, important positions, claiming to use his name, claiming to use his Hindutva narrative for themselves. Where were these people in the past 2.5 years?
All right, now, as the hearing continues in the apex court, Uddhav Sena's counsel takes over for arguments here. In fact, questions asked about email that was sent to Deputy Speaker passing a no-confidence motion. The Shinde Sena saying to that, not email, it was a notice signed by MLAs. Supreme Court asking if at all an email sent by the rebel MLAs against the Deputy Speaker can be indeed rejected. While Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who is fighting for Uddhav camp, he said the email was rejected on the mere grounds that it came from an unverified source. Further, the Supreme Court asking, is the Deputy Speaker being a judge here in his own case? Can the Deputy Speaker judge whether or not those MLAs' signatures were legit or not, to which arguments still continue in court? Nalini joining us more on that. For clarity, Nalini, that particular, that bone of contention on why the no confidence motion was struck down by the Deputy Speaker is now being argued in court, with the court really asking why was it struck down by the Deputy Speaker. Abhishek Manu Singhvi saying that it came from an unverified source, to which the court says, can the Deputy Speaker act like a judge here?
That's a very crucial question, Nabila, that is being raised by the Supreme Court, because what they are asking is that if the no confidence motion was against the Deputy Speaker, then can the Deputy Speaker himself be the one to take a call on as to whether or not that motion should be allowed? Can he be a judge in his own case is the essence of the question that is being put across by the Supreme Court. What Abhishek Manu Singhvi has stated before the Supreme Court is that this no confidence motion was not rejected on merits. It was rejected because it was sent to the Deputy Speaker through a random unverified email ID. So it was prima facie rejected by the Deputy Speaker without even going into the merits of as to whether or not the no confidence motion should be allowed. But the point that the Supreme Court is making is that can this be decided by the Deputy Speaker himself? And if this is a point that sticks with the Supreme Court, because they have also hinted, and this is the big news coming in, Nabila, they have also hinted that if this is the case, if he has decided on the no confidence motion himself, then the Supreme Court might have to issue notice to the Deputy Speaker himself, calling for the documents in the case that he has referred on, the email copy along with all of the other documents, the letters that have been written by the rebel MLAs, so that the Supreme Court can take a look at these documents and decide whether or not this decision was taken by the Deputy Speaker fairly or not, and whether he was even entitled to take a decision in a matter where the no confidence motion was moved against him itself. So a very pertinent point being raised by the Supreme Court. They're also hinting at the fact that they might summon the documents in this entire matter so that the entire case can be laid out before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has access not only to the documents that the Eknath Shinde camp has provided as annexures along with their petition, but also the documents that the Deputy Speaker has relied on to pass this no confidence motion. Another important point that is being raised by Abhishek Manu Singhvi right now is that the Deputy Speaker is required to rule on a no confidence motion within 14 days from the time that it has passed. So even though it was rejected on a prima facie basis, this time period of 14 days has still not elapsed. So the Speaker still has the authority to go ahead and
Do stay with us. We see that the Shinde Sena has come out with a 4-page bombshell in a new letter. The Shinde Sena making some startling allegations against Uddhav Thackeray and camp. And what they've said in that letter, a 4-page letter written in Marathi, translates to one of these points that Deepak Kesarkar, the rebel MLA camp, member of that rebel MLA camp, has made, saying Sanjay Raut is trying to finish the party at the orders of Sharad Pawar. NCP leaders would fire the gun using Raut's shoulders, and who'd die? Not others, but your own. Almost a strict, direct attack on Sanjay Raut at this point. This 4-page bombshell dropped by the Shinde Sena at this point extensively speaks of how Uddhav Thackeray camp has deviated from the true ethos of Hindutva and are trying to embolden the NCP. Unfortunately, this is causing big setback to the true Shiv Sena and Shiv Senics. This is exactly what the letter says, while he directly attacks Sanjay Raut, saying Sanjay Raut is trying to finish the party at the orders of Sharad Pawar. NCP leaders would fire the gun using Raut's shoulders, and who'd die? Not others, but your own. This is a 4-page bombshell that's been dropped by the Shinde Sena. Remember, this comes right amid the proceedings currently underway in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is still trying to understand on the legalities of disqualifying many of those rebel MLAs. Clearly, those rebels at this point are stern, they're angry, they're upset with the fact that despite having numbers, Uddhav Thackeray is using all his powers to target them and dismantle their unity at this point. Even though the matter is in court, Uddhav Thackeray went on to strip many of those MLAs from their ministries and also transferred those ministries to NCP and Congress leaders. This may have certainly come as a shock to the rebel MLA camp. Clearly, we're looking at this 4-page bombshell that's come in the backdrop of all these developments. In the backdrop of Uddhav Thackeray right now transferring all those ministries to NCP leaders, this certainly has come as a huge disappointment and has built anger among the rebel camp. And that's very evident through this 4-page bombshell that the rebel MLA camp has now dropped. And in that letter, a 4-page letter, all written in Marathi, one of the points translates to Sanjay Raut is trying to finish the party at the orders of Sharad Pawar. NCP leaders would fire the gun using Raut's shoulders, and who'd die? Not others, but your own. Vidya joining us more on that. Vidya, what more does that 4-page bombshell really speak of? And am I right, this comes in the backdrop of the Supreme Court hearing the matter on the validity of this disqualification notice?
Well, Nabila, yes, the fact that there is an ED notice that has been sent asking Sanjay Raut to be present tomorrow, the fact that there is a hearing today and this letter, all does, seems like if to and fro, exchange that is really happening between the various leaders, various, factions of the Shiv Sena itself. At this juncture, since the Supreme Court hearing is going on it, and especially where the issue of the deputy speaker having refused to hear any further the email that had been sent by the Eknath Shinde led faction, where they had sought the removal of the deputy speaker himself. All
right, stay with us, Vidya. I'm going to quickly cut across to Deepak Kesarkar joining us on the phone line, the rebel MLA who is with Eknath Shinde. At this point, Mr. Kesarkar, this 4-page letter that you've rolled out right at a time when the proceedings is currently underway in the Supreme Court, what's your sentiment behind it? You're blaming Sanjay Raut of trying to dismantle the true Shiv Sena.
No, my letter is very simple. It says about what happened in Shiv Sena and how Sanjay Raut tried to take us away from Shiv Sena and thought of Hindutva. That is the essence of the letter, and thereby the development of Maharashtra.
Deepak Kesarkar, at this point,
mentioned in my letter.
Yeah. We see that. If you can translate some of those points in that letter, it's mostly written in Marathi. Do you want to tell us exactly what's your grouse?
No, I'm sending another letter which is in English, which is under process, and you will get it within 5-10 minutes. So I think it will be.
No, Mr. Kesarkar, a quick point. When you shift the blame entirely on Sanjay Raut, what are you getting at? Sanjay Raut seems to be only talking the words of Uddhav Thackeray. Uddhav Thackeray's sentiments is what Sanjay Raut is echoing. So what's the purpose of targeting Sanjay Raut at this point?
We know Uddhav Sahib very well. He's very soft-spoken, and he don't talk his language. His language is very soft, very sober, and he is known to be a gentleman. The language he is using is not dissent. It is indecent language.
What are you referring to? Where he's called rebel MLAs as dead bodies, dead souls? Is that the objection that you've taken?
Exactly. After he's writing everything, I got to reply, and this is specially for my people of Maharashtra who should understand our stand and the kind of misunderstanding which is being created in the state. I have to put before them our real stand and what happened before this incident, because whatever was happening in Maharashtra, so that is also referred to, and we have fought the election as an ally between BJP and Shiv Sena. So that was the verdict of the people, and that should be upheld.
Mr. Kesarkar, you're directly accusing Sanjay Raut through your letter of being associated with NCP Chief Sharad Pawar to try and dismantle the Shiv Sena. You're accusing him to work at the behest of Sharad Pawar. That's a grave allegation.
No, please try to understand. He had broken our party 4 times. So now he is being consulted by our party. So I'll have to mention this. 4 times he has broken Shiv Sena, not only one.
How is he broken Shiv Sena 4 times, sir?
It was first when, Chhagan Bhujbal went away. Second time when Mr. Rane went away. Third time Mr. Raj Thackeray went away. And there is one more instance which people are telling me, but I'm not aware of that. But
so you're blaming this entirely on Sharad Pawar and Sanjay Raut?
Evident. No, sir. Sharad Pawar has the duty to grow his own party, Why he will feel that Shiv Sena should grow.
So you're saying Sanjay Raut has attempted to split your party multiple times in the past?
Not Sanjay Raut. Pawar sir has split our party. Openly he has done it, so.
So, Mr. Kesarkar, in the latest development, Uddhav Thackeray has transferred all the ministries from the rebel MLAs and moved it to some of the leaders of the NCP and the Congress. Does that make you feel anything? Are you emotional about this? Because your demand was to break away from the alliance, but it seems like Uddhav Thackeray is emboldening the NCP further.
No, it is not like that. We always feel that he should think in the interest of the state. When the ministers are out of station, somebody will have to look after their departments. And I have been always insisting that being a constitutional head of the state, he should look after the state very efficiently, which he has done in the past. So instead of giving more attention to a party, he will have to give more attention to the state and what he is doing right now. And we are very happy about it.
No, so you're okay with the ministries being transferred? You're saying that would be short-lived?
Yes. That is for a short time, and which is in the interest of the state and the people of the state.
Mr. Kesarkar, at this point, from what we see in many parts of Mumbai, the true Shiv Senics, at least that's what they claim to be, they are the true Shiv Senics, they are resting their allegiance with the Thackeray clan. They feel that anyone who's defied the Thackerays are not the true Shiv Sena. So, how does it feel to not receive the support from your grassroots cadre?
Madam, grassroots cadre is not aware of the facts. So it is my duty to bring all the facts before them. And I'm sure you must have seen, also the Shiv Senics are responding very well now to my appeal. And I think that is my duty because our state, there should be peace in our state. And if there is any misunderstanding being created by Mr. Sanjay Raut, we'll have to bring the fact before the true Shiv Senics. And they are Bharat true Shiv Senics. So they will understand everything. That's why my first tweet was in Marathi, second would be in English, which is meant for the other people of the nation. So that would come shortly. It is undergoing that. I think is undergoing.
But Mr. Kesarkar, at this point, you've written a letter, so it resonates with the Shiv Senics across. But, many questions being raised on why did you not take this grievance to Uddhav Thackeray much earlier? Why did you have to wait to pull off a coup of this nature, spending crores of rupees in your travel to Guwahati, to Surat, Gujarat, chartered flights, hotel stay, such an expensive affair this is? Why did you not take this matter to Uddhav Thackeray directly at first instance?
We have brought this matter before our party chief number of times, and before leaving Mumbai also. I was personally there along with 5 senior ministers. But since he was not giving a thought to it, We thought that we should join the other people who are, a little hesitant with talking because everybody has the respect for Uddhav Sahib and everybody do not dare to talk in his presence. So we talk on behalf of them. And I think that to a certain extent he was convinced, but there was not a firm answer to what we were suggesting. Only thing he told that his family was detained by people who belong to BJP. And those are the people, I don't think they are the original BJP workers. They are the ones who are admitted afterwards. And they had enmity with Matosri. So these people, they have tried to defend. And for that, some action could have been taken. Instead, when you are saying that no doubt, we were also hurt when the family was defended. We were truly hurt. And that is what we told them. But if it is done by somebody who have recently joined Sena, then the original recently joined BJP, then the BJP leadership could take appropriate action against them who have done it.
At this point,
But we should listen to us.
From what we hear, Mr. Kasirkar, here we are looking at the Supreme Court now issuing a notice to Uddhav Thackeray government. So it seems like the Supreme Court is also cracking down and questioning the powers that Uddhav holds despite not having the numbers. How would you look at this? Are you hoping for a respite? All right, here's the big news coming in. Supreme Court issues a notice on the rebel Shinde's plea. A notice that comes in the way of Uddhav Thackeray at this point. Uddhav Thackeray government now sees a notice from the Supreme Court. Let me quickly cut across to Nalini with more on that. Nalini, please define what this notice really says.
Well, Nabila, this is a notice that has been issued by the Supreme Court for all of the parties, particularly the Deputy Speaker of the Maharashtra Assembly, to respond to the petitions that have been filed by Eknath Shinde along with all of the other rebel MLAs. Two very important points coming across from the last update that we gave. Number one, the Supreme Court has asked the Deputy Speaker to file a comprehensive affidavit on two aspects. Number one, was there a letter that was received by him regarding a no confidence motion against him itself? And second, that if that no confidence motion was rejected, then on what basis, I beg your pardon, the Deputy Speaker rejected the no confidence motion against himself. So a detailed affidavit, a detailed comprehensive affidavit has been asked by the Supreme Court from the Deputy Speaker in Maharashtra on this particular aspect regarding the no confidence motion. The second most important update coming in from the Supreme Court is that Devdutt Kamath, who was the senior advocate appearing for the Maharashtra government, who had also spoken to the media earlier on behalf of the Shiv Sena, has specifically stated that there is no question of a no confidence motion against a speaker or a deputy speaker. A no confidence motion can only be moved against a CM or a government, not against the speaker. The constitution specifically mentions only removal of a speaker and not any question of a no confidence motion itself. So the Supreme Court has now issued notices to all of the parties, including the Deputy Speaker, the Maharashtra government, as well as the Shiv Sena faction led by Uddhav Thackeray, asking them to respond to the petitions that have been filed by the rebel MLAs. The next hearing we are given to understand is on 11th of July now, which is interestingly the day that the Supreme Court is reopening after the vacations conclude. So on the first day of reopening after the summer vacations, the Supreme Court is going to be taking up the Maharashtra political crisis for hearing. They have asked for the response to be filed by the Maharashtra Speaker as well as the Maharashtra Assembly within 5 days from today, and 3 days more after that will be given to the rebel MLAs to respond to the responses that have come in from the Maharashtra Speaker. This is the procedure that is followed. There's always a notice issued asking for the response on the other party on record. Even though the lawyer for the Deputy Speaker as well as the Maharashtra government have both made oral arguments before the Supreme Court today, so it's clear what their stand is going to be. They're challenging Supreme Court hearing this matter at all, saying that the proceedings before the Deputy Speaker have still not been concluded, but the Supreme Court wants all of these submissions on record, on paper, in a comprehensive manner, not in a short duration through oral arguments, which is why they've asked for a detailed response in this entire matter, not only from the Deputy Speaker but also from the Maharashtra government, specifically on the issue of the no confidence motion so far. It remains to be seen what response is filed by these people, but on the 11th of July is when the next hearing is going to be conducted before the Supreme Court. Some very important developments have undertaken before the top court today, which is likely to set
Hold on right there, Nalini, hold on right there. I want to take this straight across to Paulami Saha as well, who's joining us for all the very latest from Guwahati on this story. Paulami, for our viewers who have just tuned in, do encapsulate all that is going on right now, because now the Supreme Court has issued a notice to the Uddhav government on pleas filed by the Shinde camp, and what's the sentiment you're picking amidst the Shinde camp at this point of time? Paulami, over to you.
Well, Chetty, obviously we do know now that all of the respondents in this case have been asked to, in fact, submit an affidavit within 5 days' time as far as this entire matter is concerned, which includes, of course, the Speaker, the Maharashtra Government, Assembly Secretary, Mr. Ajay Chaudhary, Mr. Sunil Prabhu, and those others as well who have been made party to this petition, these two petitions by the Eknath Shinde.
Apologies about the interruption right there. Nalini's got some updates coming in from the Supreme Court. Take it away, Nalini.
Yes, Nabila, big breaking coming in from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has specifically asked the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker rather of the Maharashtra Assembly, to ensure that the disqualification proceedings will not continue at least until the next date of hearing. Although another important rider is that the arguments are still underway, and Rajiv Dhawan has said that he cannot give such an assurance without first speaking to the Deputy Speaker. But the Supreme Court's made its intentions very clear. They've listed the hearing for July 11th, and they're asking the Speaker to not conduct the disqualification proceedings at least until then, because the issue regarding the no confidence motion has to be decided first. No doubt, if this is in the final order that is passed by the Supreme Court today, that the disqualification proceedings should not continue, then that will come as a massive relief to not only Eknath Shinde but all of the MLAs and the supporters who are with him in Guwahati right now, who are facing disqualification, to whom notices have already been issued to the Deputy Speaker. This is precisely what they were hoping for, some sort of interim relief, and if a stay is put on these disqualification proceedings, we're still waiting for the final order. The final order is not yet come in, but the Supreme Court made its intention very clear. They've said that the Deputy Speaker should not proceed with the disqualification proceedings at least until the next date of hearing, which is the 11th of July. So another roughly about 15 to 16 days more that the rebel MLAs will have to work out a strategy. They will not be disqualified until then, but we have to wait for the final order of the Supreme Court to see whether or not this makes it there, because the council who is representing the Deputy Speaker...
Let me get this right. You're talking to Chetty now. You're talking to Chetty now. Let me get this right. There is an interim relief that is come for the Shinde Sena camp on the back of this, because until 11th of July, none of those rebel MLAs will be disqualified, because the decision on the no confidence motion is supposed to be taken first. Have I got that right?
Absolutely, Chetty, you've got that absolutely right. But like I told you, there is a small rider because the arguments have not yet been completed and the final order has not been passed. But the Supreme Court's made it clear that they don't want these disqualification proceedings to continue until they decide on the no confidence motion and what the final decision in that is. The concern regarding the no confidence motion, Chetty, that the Supreme Court has is, can the Deputy Speaker even decide on a no confidence motion that has been passed against himself itself? Can he be a judge in his own case? Is the question that the Supreme Court's raising, which is why they have called for all the documents regarding this no confidence motion, which includes the letters that were sent by the rebel MLAs. And until a final decision is taken on that aspect, there is no question of conducting any further proceedings. But because Rajiv Dhawan's not given that assurance yet, it remains to be seen whether or not the Supreme Court's going to pass orders despite that, because sometimes the Supreme Court avoids putting things in orders and asks asks for an assurance from the council appearing before the court so that there is no prejudice against any one particular party. But in this case, since the council appearing for the deputy speaker is still not giving the assurance that he is not going to put a stay on the disqualification proceedings that are already continuing.
Nalini, you are the best person to explain this. Nalini, you are the best person. To the layman, this is too much of a legality. Can or cannot the deputy speaker decide against his own no confidence motion? What is be the legal precedence in this regard, and what does the law say with this regard?
Well, Shetty, if we look at the larger perspective of things, one of the three principles of natural justice is that no man can be the judge in his own cause. So if this is an issue, anything to do with the deputy speaker, then the deputy speaker himself cannot be the one who is the deciding authority on that particular aspect. Now, because the subject of this no confidence motion is the deputy speaker, can he take an action? Can he take a decision as to whether or not he should be removed by himself? Is the question that the Supreme Court's asking. Abhishek Manu Singhvi stated this exact same principle of natural justice that I am stating before you before the Supreme Court, saying no man can be a judge in his own cause. That is why the deputy speaker himself cannot decide on the issue of the no confidence motion. Another very important point, though, that has come in, Chetty, is that Devdutt Kamath, who is representing the Maharashtra government, has put forth before the Supreme Court that there is no provision in the constitution that even talks about a no confidence motion against a speaker. A no confidence motion can only be moved either against a chief minister or against a government. The constitution only talks about the removal of a speaker. So where are we getting this no confidence motion against a speaker from is a question that Devdutt Kamath has raised. So as to whether or not this no confidence motion is valid in law, is even legally valid in law, the Supreme Court will decide now, likely on the 11th of July, once they have all the documents before them.
So now the ball shifts back to the Supreme Court to decide based on the arguments which have been made by the lawyers of both sides clearly, because they're both bringing in some solid legal arguments to the fore. And now, once these solid arguments are put forth, it is up to the Supreme Court to decide the interpretation of this law and pass that final order on this. So 11 July is when we would know where the Supreme Court really stands, isn't it?
Well, precisely. The hearing on 11 July is going to be extremely crucial, Chetty, not only because this matter is going to be taken up, and for the first time we are going to have on-record arguments that will be put forth by not only the Uddhav Thackeray faction, but also the deputy speaker himself. But another reason as to why this hearing is going to be important is because we'll have to see which bench the hearing on the 11th of July is listed before. Right now, Justices Suryakant and Justice J.B. Pardiwala are hearing this matter because there's a vacation bench of the Supreme Court that is functioning right now during the summer holidays, and they are the ones who are responsible for all the matters. But it might be listed before a completely different bench, because on 11th of July is when the Supreme Court's going to be reopening after the summer vacations. So the Supreme Court's going to be working with full gusto from the 11th of July after a long vacation, and that is the day when this matter is going to come up.
Our viewers are also very interested, Nalini, in breaking down this legal jargon. I'm coming back to Nalini in just about a bit, but I believe now Maushami has got some updates coming in right there. I want to throw straight across to Maushami. What do you have for us?
I think we should now wait for the final proceedings to get over.
So let's get the first reaction from Shiv Sena. We know of the fact that 3 days time has been given and various stakeholders have been told to answer on this entire petition.
So the proceedings are still going on, and it would be premature for me to take a call or comment on something like this. But Supreme Court is hearing all sides, and once that is over and done with, we'll be able to give you a better response to this. But Supreme Court feels that everybody should get a chance to answer, which they're doing.
Importantly, repeatedly this is being made, this argument is being made by the Shinde camp that the deputy speaker's position is untenable, and he himself is in the dock, so he had no locus standi to issue a disqualification.
No, he was not in the dock. He is the deputy speaker of the assembly, and there was no such notice issued. And as far as motions are concerned, motions are accepted during the assembly being in session. That is what Arunachal Pradesh court judgment will also tell you, the Supreme Court judgment on Arunachal Pradesh will tell you. But again, I wouldn't want to preempt anything without finally hearing what the Supreme Court is wanting the governments to do, what is it asking everyone else to do.
But we can see that the Supreme Court is entertaining the petition, though the court did ask that why didn't you go to the High Court, and Abhishek Manu Singhvi also said that why did the party, Shinde's party, did not go to the High Court, but now Supreme Court is hearing the entire petition.
So the question really arises, the MLAs who were elected from Maharashtra, the ones who are holding important positions in Maharashtra, why is it that they chose to go to the Supreme Court? Do they have no faith in the High Court of Maharashtra?
And what would you say that repeatedly this argument is also being given, that 39 of us, we are being threatened, of the threat factor has been incorporated in the petition, and that has also been said by the Shinde camp.
They have CRPF protection. They have the protection of the governor also making an appeal on their behalf. They have the Maharashtra police working 24/7 to safeguard their families and their properties, as well as we are ensuring to them that once they return to Mumbai, because that is where the flow test will happen, that all adequate measures will be taken. The only thing that they're fearing, and very honestly, is that they have spectacularly failed to gauge that this is legally untenable position that they have taken, and they all stand to be disqualified, and their constituencies will also not forgive them for having voted for them under the Shiv Sena symbol and having backstabbed the very leadership.
A notice also been issued to Mr. Ajay Chaudhary, who was appointed by the Uddhav Thackeray government as the Deputy Speaker. So, pardon me, as the CLP leader of the Shiv Sena.
No, again, I will repeat, we are on the right side of the law. And the law is supreme, and we will respond to as per whatever Supreme Court decides to do, asks us to do, and what should be rightfully done.
Is legal, Ajay Chaudhary's appointment, despite the fact that more than two-third majority?
Of course it's legal. Legislative party under the symbol of the bow and arrow belongs to the Shiv Sena under the leadership of Shri Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray. There is no, there's nothing wrong in what has happened. Chief whips have changed, CLPs have changed over the years. What their argument is, again, like I said, is legally not tenable.
Importantly, reporters from the court are saying that 11th July the matter is listed, and meanwhile, as an interim measure, the time granted by Deputy Speaker to petition or similarly or a similar matter of MLAs to submit response by 5 p.m. today is extended till 11th of July, 5:30 p.m. That really means. That means that if that is, our reporters have just flashed that the MLAs, the disqualification proceedings and the timeline, the deadline given will be extended till 11th of July. Is that a big jolt for the Shiv Sena MVA government?
Till I don't, again I repeat, till we do not see the entire proceedings and what is finally called, rather than going on the stories which are flashed. While we were sitting, Aaj Tak changed its statements thrice, so I wouldn't want to jump to any conclusion till we don't have a final outcome.
That is the matter, because we have this breaking that is coming up. Our reporter Anisha has said, and Mr. Dhawan has objected to that matter, says that since the Deputy Speaker has rejected the notice of motion because it is important that it is not authenticated, let them file a detailed reply, let the proceedings before the Speaker be completed. He is insisting that the proceedings today should be completed.
Again, I will wait for the final outcome and what is finally spoken about and what decisions are being taken. And again, since the matter is sub judice right now, it would be difficult for me to even react to something like that right now.
All right, so Priyanka Chaudhary, they're treading carefully. Priyanka Chaturvedi, they're, pardon me, treading very carefully. But importantly, she says that we are on the right footing. It is the rebel MLAs who have betrayed the party and the people, and they are answerable. And whatever replies need to be given will be given to the court.
All right, Maushami bringing us that exclusive update coming in from Priyanka Chaturvedi, who is a member of parliament and spokesperson of the Shiv Sena as well. Let's bring in Nalini Sharma now. She's our legal. Nalini, you've got us so many updates. This is a fast developing story and many updates coming at this point of time from the Supreme Court as well. Net, for the layman to understand, outside of the legal jargon, which you're fantastic with because you understand the law. Let's break this down for our viewers. What does this really mean? Does this mean that the Shinde camp gets advantage now because the disqualification has been put on hold until the next hearing, which is 11th of July? And why? Explain the legal lay of the land to a layman.
Well, Shruti, the big news coming in from the Supreme Court right now is that the Supreme Court has specifically extended the time for the rebel MLAs to respond to this disqualification notice till 5:30 p.m. on July 11th. In layman's terms, what that means is that status quo, at least on the aspect of disqualification proceedings, will continue till the 11th of July. No further proceedings can be conducted regarding the disqualification aspects of these 16 MLAs. After the Deputy Speaker refused to give his assurance as to whether or not these disqualification proceedings will continue, the Supreme Court has extended their time in the interim till 11th of July to respond to these disqualification notices, which means, which doesn't although necessarily mean that there is an advantage that is given to them, but definitely means that there is no disadvantage for them. Because this disqualification proceedings was the sword that was hanging over their heads for the past couple of days, since the 25th of June, when the disqualification notice was issued to them. So now, because they know that the Deputy Speaker cannot proceed any further with the disqualification proceedings, at least till the 11th of July, there will be respite, there will be relief that they will be feeling at this point, and it also gives them time to plan out their further strategies as sitting members of the Legislative Assembly, because they cannot be disqualified. The question will now become, and this will only happen before the floor of the House, the question will now become who has the numbers, because the Supreme Court has specifically
of course, this story is all going to be boiling down to the numbers as well, and the legality surrounding this particular story as well. Now, bring our viewers up to speed in terms of what the arguments were as far as Devdutt Kamath is concerned, who's representing the Uddhav Sena in court on the principles of natural justice vis-a-vis the no confidence motion which is being faced by the Deputy Speaker, for the layman to understand very clearly what is going on.
Well, Shruti, first quickly just look into what are the two main takeaways from the extremely long hearing that's happened today. Number one is that the Supreme Court has called for a comprehensive affidavit from the Deputy Speaker explaining on the basis of which the no confidence motion was rejected by him. The second most important takeaway is that the Supreme Court has stated that till the 11th of July, the rebel MLAs, the 16 MLAs against whom disqualification has been sought, they have time till the 11th of July to respond to this notice, which means that they are not bound by the deadline that was issued for 5:30 p.m. today, and do not have to appear before the Speaker before that deadline. But some very important arguments, like you were asking about, have also been raised during the course of this entire hearing. The first and the foremost was the argument regarding the principle of natural justice, like you correctly pointed out, as to whether or not the Deputy Speaker of the Maharashtra Legislative Assembly can even be the one who can decide on this issue of no confidence motion. Because the no confidence motion has been passed against him only, can he be the judge in his own case, is the first question that has been put forth before the Supreme Court. The second question that has been put forth before the Supreme Court is that can a no confidence motion against the Speaker even exist?
Yes,
Because
yes.
none of the provisions of the
So
Constitution
before
talk
the
about
moving
no
ahead with the disqualification of the 16 MLAs and the hearing on 11th of July, the first decision, Nalini, and correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be first taken on the no confidence motion as far as the Deputy Speaker is concerned, and then they would proceed over the hearing of the matter of the disqualification of MLA. So is that the order that is going to be followed?
We are still waiting for the final order, Chetty, but yes, you are precisely right. First, they are going to decide on the issue of no confidence motion. Let me explain to you why. Because even though there was an ambit of things that was challenged by the Shiv Sena, as well the Shinde Sena, I beg your pardon, as well as the MLA supporting them before the Supreme Court, their main crux of the argument...
Supreme Court has asked the Uddhav government to ensure the safety of MLAs. Big breaking news on your screens right now. Supreme Court has asked the Uddhav government to ensure the safety of MLAs. Supreme Court going on to ask Uddhav government to ensure safety of the MLAs. Breaking news coming in from the Supreme Court at this point of time. Taking this across to Nalini. Nalini, give us some perspective as far as Supreme Court asking the Uddhav government to ensure safety of their own MLAs is concerned. Are they speaking about the 11 MLAs in the Uddhav camp so that they cannot be further poached by the Shinde camp?
Chaiti, over here the Supreme Court's talking about the rebel MLAs who had originally approached the Supreme Court seeking protection, saying that there is a threat to their life.
Okay.
Because remember, just minutes before the hearing began in the Supreme Court, there was another application that was filed by the Shinde camp saying that the law and order situation in Maharashtra has gone out of control of the Mahavikas Aghadi government, which is why there was a genuine threat to their life. They had also used that reason to state as to why they had not approached the Bombay High Court with a legal remedy, because they said that the environment in Bombay is not conducive at this point. So the Supreme Court has said that the state must ensure that protection is granted to all of these MLAs. The state should take adequate steps to maintain law and order and protect life and liberty of these 39 MLAs.
This is of course coming on the back of Nalini. This is of course coming on the back. Just to give our viewers a little bit of background as well. You did have a little bit of vandalism, and you had the Shiv Senics who had taken to the streets of Mumbai as well, and there was a genuine threat to the families of these rebel MLAs who are at the moment in Guwahati, but their families are in Maharashtra right now, and hence the Supreme Court has asked the Uddhav government that there should be no further damage caused to their families at this point of time, and the police of Maharashtra falls under the Uddhav government, so make sure and ensure their families are all right. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. The Supreme Court's passed these very clear directions right now while passing the oral orders. Of course, this is also going to get translated into the written orders, but the Supreme Court's made it very clear that it is the responsibility of the state government to ensure that law and order is maintained in the state and the life and liberty of all its citizens, including these 39 MLAs that are now casting aspersions regarding the threat to their life, should be maintained. And that is precisely why the Supreme Court's gone ahead and made directions to the state to ensure that adequate protection and safety is granted to all of these MLAs, even if they come back to Mumbai. Remember, in their petition that they've stated, they've clearly said that one of the main reasons why they've not come back to Mumbai is because there is a genuine threat to their life and they fear that they might be harmed. They've also raised threats regarding their family members, which is why they had specifically moved the Supreme Court asking for protection to be granted to their family members who are still within Maharashtra. And the Supreme Court's gone ahead and granted that. They've clearly said that there should be no untoward incident in this entire matter, and it is the responsibility of the state to ensure that law and order is maintained in the state and all of these rebels' life as well as liberty is protected by the state.
So at this point of time, as far as the Shinde camp is concerned, it is status quo, and as far as the Uddhav camp is concerned, it's a fair amount of setback that is coming in.
Well, precisely because no further proceedings can be conducted till the 11th of July. Let me make it clear. Till the 11th of July, time has been granted to these rebel MLAs to now respond to the disqualification notice. The Supreme Court's not specifically stayed the disqualification proceedings, nor have they said that the disqualification proceedings cannot continue. They have simply extended the deadline till the 11th of July, which is when the next date of hearing is going to happen. But because by virtue of the fact that they've extended this deadline till the 11th of July, no further proceedings can happen till then, because only once a response is received from the rebel MLAs will the disqualification proceedings be allowed.
So that also effectively means, okay, so Nalini, that also effectively means that till this issue is decided upon by the Supreme Court, which is hearing the case at the moment, there can also not be any floor test whatsoever.
Well, not specifically on the issue of floor test, no, Chaiti, they have not specifically said that. They have only extended the time regarding the disqualification proceedings and the notice that was issued to the rebel MLAs by the Deputy Speaker in the Maharashtra Legislative Assembly, asking them to appear before them by 5:30 p.m. today. That is the only aspect on which the Supreme Court passed these interim orders and specifically gone ahead and extended the time for them to reply to this. As to whether or not a floor test will be conducted is completely dependent on the proceedings that happen before the Deputy Speaker. They will be the right authority to take a call on this, because no part of the petition filed by the Shinde faction specifically talks about out whether or not a floor test in this entire matter should be conducted. They are simply stating that the Maha Vikas Aghadi government does not have the majority on their side, and plus the Deputy Speaker does not have the powers to conduct the proceedings that he is already conducting without first deciding on the no confidence motion.
Let me take this across to Anisha Mathur as well, who is our Chief Legal Eagle of India today. And Anisha, you've been there, you've witnessed these proceedings as well. Just for our viewers who have tuned in, get us the overall lay of the land and what this really means, leaving the legal jargon aside, given the fact that our viewers would get a better understanding where the Shinde camp stands and where the Uddhav camp stands. Over to you, Anisha.
Well, there are three things that have come out from this particular hearing. For the last several minutes, this hearing lasted for a long time. But at the end of it, there are 3 points that have come out. One, it is a relief for the Shinde camp, as the court has said that the deadline that was given to them by the Deputy Speaker to respond to the disqualification notices by 5:30 p.m. today, that has been extended to the 11th of July. Please remember, this is not a stay or status quo order on the disqualification proceedings, because this is simply an extension of time, because there was a specific objection from the senior advocate appearing on behalf of the Deputy Speaker that you cannot hold the Speaker's proceedings in abeyance. And the fact that Rajiv Dhawan, who was a lawyer for the Speaker, he has also specifically said that since there is a question of the validity of the notice of motion to remove the Speaker, that issue is something that the rebel MLAs will also have to file a response. So court has said, given them time till 11th of July to file a response on the disqualification proceedings as well as on the validity of the notice of motion, because those proceedings are pending before the Speaker or the Deputy Speaker of the House. Second point that has come out is that the court has noted that the basic point that the Supreme Court will have to decide on is whether the Speaker or the Deputy Speaker at this moment actually has the authority at the moment to start these disqualification proceedings. That is the legal point on which the Supreme Court will have to conduct its proceedings. That if there is a valid notice to remove the Speaker,